The Mahabharata of Krishna Dwapayanavyasa. Book 8 Karnapava. Translated into English prose from the original Sanskrit text. By Kesari Mohan Ganguly. 1883 to 1896. Scanned and proofed by Mantra Chaitanya. Additional proofing and formatting at sacredtexts.com by J.B. Hare, October 2003. 1. Having bowed down unto Narayana, and unto that most exalted of male beings, Nara, and unto the goddess Sarasvati also, must the word Jaya be uttered. Vshampayana said, after Drona had been slain, O monarch, the royal warriors of the Kaurava army, headed by Duryodhana, with hearts filled with great anxiety, all repaired to Drona's son. Lamenting the loss of Drona, and deprived of energy in consequence of their cheerlessness, they sat around the son of Sharadvata's daughter, afflicted with grief. Comforted for a little while by considerations founded upon the scriptures, when night came, those rulers of earth proceeded to their respective tents. Those lords of earth, however, O thou of Kuru's race, could feel no happiness in their abodes. Thinking of that immense slaughter, they could not also sleep. The Suta's son, Karna, and King Sayadana and Dashasna and Shakuni, in special, could not compose themselves to sleep. Those four passed that night together in Duryodhana's tent, reflecting upon the woes they had inflicted upon the high-souled Pandavas. Formerly they had brought Draupadi, plunged into woe on account of the match at dice, into the assembly. Recollecting it, they experienced great regret, their hearts being filled with anxiety. Thinking of those sufferings inflicted upon the Pandavas, in consequence of the gambling match, they passed that night in sorrow, O king, as if it were really 100 years. Then when morning came, observing the dictates of the ordinance, all of them duly went through the customary rites. Having gone through these customary rites, and comforted to some extent, O Bharata, they ordered their troops to be arrayed, and then came out for battle, having made Kanna their generalissimo by tying the auspicious thread round his wrists, and having caused many foremost of Brahmanas, by presents of vessels of curds, clarified butter, akshatas, coins of gold, kine, jewels and gems, and costly robes, to pray for their victory, and having caused heralds and musicians, and panegyrists to adore them with hymns about victory. The Pandavas also, O king, having gone through their morning rites, issued from their camp, resolved on battle. Then commenced a fierce battle, making the hair to stand on end, between the Kurus and the Pandavas, each desirous of vanquishing the other. During the commandership of Karna, the battle that took place between the Kuru and the Pandava troops was exceedingly fierce and lasted for 2 days. Then Vrisha, Karna, having made an immense slaughter of his enemies in battle, was at last slain in the sight of the Dharashtra's by Arjuna. Then Sanjaya, repairing to Hastinapura, told Dhritarashtra all that had happened at Kuru Jangala. Janamejaya said, having heard of the fall of Bhishma and that other mighty car warrior, Drona, the old king Dhritarashtra the son of Ambika had been afflicted with great grief. How, O foremost of Brahmanas, could he, plunged into grief, support his life, having heard of the death of Karna, that well-wisher of Duryodhana? How indeed could that descendant of Kuru support his life when he, upon whom that monarch had rested the hope of his son's victory, had fallen? When the king did not lay down his life even after hearing of Karna's death, I think that it is very difficult for men to yield up life even under circumstances of great grief. O Brahmana, when the king did not yield up his life after hearing of the fall of the venerable son of Shantanu, of Balika and Drona and Somadatta and Bharishriva, as also other friends and his sons and grandsons, I think, O regenerate one, that the act of yielding up one's life is exceedingly difficult. Tell me all these in detail and as they actually happened. I am not satiated with hearing the high achievements of my ancestors. 2. Champagnana said, upon the fall of Ghana, O monarch, the son of Gavalgana, with a cheerless heart, set out that night for Nagara, on steeds that rivaled the wind in speed. Arrived at Hastinapura, with a heart filled with deep anxiety, he proceeded to Dhritarashtra's abode, which no longer teemed with kinsmen and friends. Beholding the king deprived of all energy by grief, joining his hands he worshipped, with a bend of his head, the monarch's feet. Having duly worshipped King Dhritarashtra, he uttered an exclamation of woe and then began, I am Sanjaya, O Lord of Earth. Art thou not happy? I hope thou art not stupefied, having through thy own faults fallen into such distress? Counsels for thy good had been uttered by Vidura and Ganga's son and Keshava. I hope thou feelest no pain now, remembering thy rejection of those counsels. Counsels for thy good had also been uttered in the assembly by Rama and Narada and Kanwa and others. I hope thou feelest no pain now, remembering the rejection by thee. I hope thou feelest no pain, remembering the slaughter in battle by the foe of Bhishma and Drona and others, those friends that were ever engaged in thy good. And to the suitor's son who with joined hands was telling him so, the monarch afflicted with grief and drawing a long and hot breath, said these words. Dhritarashtra said, hearing, O Sanjaya, of the fall of the heroic son of Ganga, that warrior of all celestial weapons, as also of the fall of that foremost of all bowmen, Drona, my heart feeleth great pain. That hero endued with great energy and born of the Vasas themselves, who slew every day 10,000 warriors clad in mail, that hysled one and to whom Bhrigu's son had given the highest weapons, that warrior who in his childhood had been trained in the science of the bow by Rama, alas, even he hath been slain by Yajnasana's son Shikandi, protected by the Pandavas. At this my heart is greatly pained. That hero, through whose grace those mighty warriors, the royal sons of Kunti, as also many other lords of earth, have become Maharathas, alas, hearing of the slaughter of that great bowman of sure aim, Drona, by Drishthadhyumna, my heart is exceedingly pained. Those two had not in the world a person equal to them in knowledge and use of the 4 kinds of weapons. Alas, hearing of the slaughter of these two, Bhishma and Drona, in battle my heart is exceedingly pained. That warrior who had not in the 3 worlds a person equal to him in knowledge of weapons, alas, hearing of the slaughter of that hero, Drona, what did the people of my side do? After the Hysul son of Pandu, Dhananjaya, exerting himself with prowess, has dispatched unto Yama's abode the strong force of the Samsaptakas, after the Narayana weapon of the intelligent son of Drona had been baffled, and after their Kaurava divisions had begun to fly away. What, indeed, did the people of my side do? I think that, after Drona's death my troops, flying away and sinking in an ocean of grief, resembled shipwrecked mariners struggling on the bosom of the vast deep. What also, O Sanjaya, became the colour of the faces of Duryodhana, and Karna, and Gritavama the chief of the Bhajas, and Sholya, the ruler of the Madras, and of my remaining sons, and of the others, when the Kuru divisions fled away from the field. Tell me all this as it truly happened in battle, O son of Gavalgana, and describe to me the prowess put forth by the Pandavas and the warriors of my side. Sanjaya said, O sire, hearing all that has happened unto the Kauravas through thy fault, thou shouldst not feel any anguish. He that is wise never feeleth any pain at what destiny bringeth. And since destiny is unconquerable, human purposes may or may not become attainable. Hence, he that is wise never feeleth pain on the acquisition or the reverse of the objects cherished by him. Dhritarashtra said, I do not feel great pain, O Sanjaya. I regard all this to be the result of destiny. Tell me all that thou wishest. 3. Sanjaya said, upon the fall of the great bowman Drona, thy sons, those mighty car warriors, became pale and deprived of their senses. Armed with weapons, all of them, O monarch, hung down their heads. Afflicted with grief and without looking at one another, they stood perfectly silent. Beholding them with such afflicted countenances, thy troops, O Bharata, themselves perturbed by grief, vacantly gazed upwards. Seeing Drona slain in battle, the weapons of many of them, O king, dyed with blood, dropped from their hands. Innumerable weapons, again, O Bharata, still retained in the grasp of the soldiers, seemed in their pendant attitude to resemble falling meteors in the sky. Then King Duryodhana, O monarch, beholding that army of thine thus standing as if paralyzed and lifeless, said, relying upon the might of your army, I have summoned the Pandavas to battle and caused this passage at arms to commence. Upon the fall of Drona, however, the prospect seems to be cheerless. Warriors engaged in battle all die in battle. Engaged in battle, a warrior may have either victory or death. What can be strange then in this, viz., the death of Drona? Fight ye with faces turned towards every direction. Behold now the high Sultana, the son of the Kardana, that great bowman of mighty strength, careering in battle, using his celestial weapons. Through fear of that warrior in battle, that coward, viz., Dhananjaya, the son of Kunti, always turns back like a small deer at the sight of a lion. It is he who, by the ordinary methods of human battle, brought the mighty Bhimasena endued with the strength of 10,000 elephants to that plight. It is he who, uttering a loud roar, slew with his invincible dart the brave Bhatotaka of 1,000 delusions and well acquainted with celestial weapons. Behold today the inexhaustible might of arms of that intelligent warrior of sure aim and invincible energy. Let the sons of Pandu behold today the prowess of both Ashvatthama and Karna resembling that of Vishnu and Vasava. All of you are singly able to slay the sons of Pandu with their troops in battle. How much more then are you capable, when united together, of that feat? Endued with great energy and accomplished in weapons, you will today behold one another engaged in the achievement of mighty tasks. Sanjaya continued, having said these words, O sinless one, thy son Duryodhana, with his brothers, made Karna the generalissimo of the Kuru army. Obtaining the command, the mighty warrior Karna, so fierce in battle, uttered loud roars and fought with the foe. He caused, O sire, a great carnage among the Srinjayas, the Panchalas, the Kikayas, and the Vidas. From his bow issued innumerable lines of arrows, one close behind the wings of another, like flights of bees. Having afflicted the Panchalas and the Pandavas endued with great activity, and slain thousands of warriors, he was at last slain by Arjuna. 4. Vshampayana said, hearing this intelligence, O monarch, Dhritarashtra the son of Ambika, feeling the acme of grief, regarded Suayodhana to be already dead. Exceedingly agitated, the king fell down on the earth like an elephant deprived of its senses. When that foremost of the monarchs, greatly agitated, fell down on the earth, loud wails were uttered, O best of the Bharatas, by the ladies of the royal household. That noise was so loud that it seemed to fill the entire earth. Immersed in a deep ocean of woe, the Bharata ladies, with hearts exceedingly agitated and scorched by grief, wept aloud. Approaching the king, Gandhari, O bull of Bharata's race, and the other ladies of the household, all fell down on the earth, deprived of their senses. Then Sanjaya, O king, began to comfort those ladies stricken with grief, bathed in tears, and reft of consciousness. Comforted by Sanjaya, Those ladies began to tremble repeatedly like a plantain grove shaken by the wind. Vidura also, sprinkling that descendant of Kuru with water, began to comfort the puissant monarch who had knowledge only for his eye. Slowly restored to consciousness, and understanding that the ladies of the household were the king, O monarch, remained perfectly silent for some time like one reft of reason. Having reflected then for some time, and repeatedly drawn long breaths, the king censured his own sons and applauded the Pandavas. Censuring also his own intelligence and that of Shakuni the son of Sabala, the king, having reflected for a long time, began to tremble repeatedly. Controlling his mind once more, the king, with sufficient fortitude, questioned his Charioteer Sanjaya the son of Gavalgana. Dhritarashtra said, I have heard, O Sanjaya, all that thou hast said. Hath my son Duryodhana, O Suta, who is ever desirous of victory, already gone to Yama's abode, despairing of success? Tell me truly, O Sanjaya, all this even if thou wilt have to repeat it. Vshampayana continued, thus addressed by the king, O Janamjaya, the Sutas said unto him, the mighty Ka warrior Vakatana, O monarch, hath been slain with his sons and brothers, and other Suta warriors, all of whom were mighty bowmen ready to lay down their lives in battle. Dushasana also hath been slain by the renowned son of Pandu. Indeed, his blood also hath been, from wrath, drunk by Bhimasena in battle. 5. Vshampayana said, hearing these words, O monarch, Ambika's son Dhritarashtra, with heart agitated by grief, addressed his driver Sanjaya, saying, though the evil policy, O sire, of my son of little foresight, Vikatana's son hath been slain. This intelligence is cutting the very core of my heart. I am desirous of crossing this sea of grief. Remove my doubts, therefore, by telling me who are still alive and who are dead amongst the Kurus and the Pandavas. Sanjaya said, endued with great prowess and invincible in battle, Bhishma the son of Shantanu, O king, having slain large numbers of Saranjayas and Pankalas, hath been slain after 10 days. The mighty and invincible bowman Drona of the Golden Car, having slaughtered the Pankala divisions in battle, hath been slain. Having slaughtered the half of what remained after the carnage by Bhishma and the illustrious Drona, Vikatana's son Kana hath been slain. Endued with great strength, O monarch, Prince Vivangsati, having slain hundreds of Anita warriors in battle, hath been slain. Thy heroic son Vikana, deprived of steeds and weapons, stood, facing the foe, remembering the duties of Kshatriyas, remembering the many foul wrongs inflicted upon him by Duryodhana, and bearing in mind his own vow, Bhimasena hath slain him. Possessed of great might, Vinda and Anuvinda, the 2 princes of Avanti, after achieving the most difficult feats, have gone to Yama's abode. That hero who had under his sway 10 kingdoms, having sent to for their chief, him who was ever obedient to thee, Jayadratha of mighty energy, O king, Arjuna hath slain after vanquishing 11 Akshayinis of troops with his keen arrows. Endued with great activity and incapable of being easily defeated in battle, the son of Duryodhana, ever obedient to his sire's commands, hath been slain by the son of Subhadra. The brave son of Dushasana, possessed of mighty arms and fierce in battle, hath been dispatched to Yama's abode by Draupadi's son, exerting himself with great prowess. The ruler of the Kairatas and other dwellers of the lowlands on the sea-coast, the much respected and dear friend of the chief of the Celestials himself, the virtuous King Bhagadatta, who was ever devoted to Kshatriya duties, hath been dispatched to Yama's abode by Dhananjaya, exerting himself great with prowess. The kinsman of the Kauravas, the son of Somadatta, the brave and celebrated Bharishriva, O king, hath been slain by Satyaki in battle. The Amvashtha king Sarutayas, that foremost of Kshatriyas, who used to career in battle most fearlessly, hath been slain by Arjuna. Thy son Dushasana, accomplished in arms and invincible in battle, and who was always wrathful, hath, O monarch, been slain by Bhimasena. Sudakshina, O king, who had many thousands of wonderful elephants, hath been slain in battle by Arjuna. The ruler of the Kosalas, having slain many hundreds of foes, hath himself been dispatched to Yama's abode by Subhadra's son, exerting himself with prowess. Having fought with many thousands of foes and with the mighty Ka warrior Bhimasena himself, thy son Citrasana hath been slain by Bhimasena, the brave younger brother of the ruler of the Madras, that enhancer of the fears of foes, that handsome warrior armed with sword and shield, hath been slain by Subhadra's son. He who was equal to Karna himself in battle, Karna's son Vrishasana, accomplished in arms, of mighty energy and steady prowess, hath, in the very sight of Karna, been dispatched to Yama's abode by Dhananjaya, who put forth his prowess, remembering the slaughter of his own son Abhimanyu and bearing in mind the vow he had made. That lord of earth, Sarutayas, who always displayed a deep-rooted antipathy towards the Pandavas, hath been slain by Partha, who reminded him of that antipathy before taking his life. Shulya's son of great prowess, O sire, Rakmaratha, hath, O king, been slain in battle by Sahadevu, although the former happened to be the latter's brother, having been the son of the latter's maternal uncle. The old king Bhagarata and Vrihakshatra, the ruler of the Kakeyas, both endued with great prowess and might and energy, have been slain. Bhagadatta's son, O king, who was possessed of great wisdom and great strength, hath been slain by Nakula, who always careers in battle with the activity of the hawk. Thy grandsire Balaka, possessed of great might and prowess, hath, with all his followers, been slain by Bhimasena. The mighty Jayatsena, the son of Jarasandha, the prince of the Magadhas, O king, hath been slain in battle by the Hysul son of Subhadra. Thy son Dharmaka, O king, as also thy other son Dasaha, that mighty Ka warrior, both of whom were regarded as heroes, have been slain by Bhimasena with his mace. Damashana and Durvaisaha and the mighty Ka warrior Dajaya, having achieved the most difficult feats, have gone to Yama's abode. The two brothers Kalinga and Vrishaka, who were invincible in battle, having achieved very difficult feats, have gone to Yama's abode. Thy counsellor Vrishavarman of the Sutta caste, endued with great energy, hath been dispatched to Yama's abode by Bhimasena, exerting himself with prowess. So also King Purava, who was endued with a might of 10,000 elephants, hath, with all his followers, been slain by Pandu's son Arjuna. The Vasatis, O king, numbering 2,000, effectual smiters of all, as also the Zurasnas endued with prowess, have all been slain in battle. The Abhishakas, clad in mail, capable of smiting effectually, and fierce in battle, also the Sivis, those foremost of Ka warriors, with the Kalingas, have all been slain. Those other heroes also, the Naranagopas, who live and grew in Gokula, who were exceedingly wrathful in battle, and who never retreated from the field, have been slain by Savyasi. Many thousands of Srinath, as also the Samsaktakas, approaching Arjuna, have all repaired to the abode of Yama. Thy two brothers-in-law, viz., the princes Vrishaka and Vakala, who were endued with great prowess, have for thy sake been slain by Savyasi. King Shulva of mighty arms and fierce deeds, who was a great bowman both in name and feats, hath been slain by Bhimasena. O Kavat, O king, and Vrishanta, fighting together in battle and exerting themselves with great vigour for the sake of their ally, have both repaired to Yama's abode. So also that foremost of Ka warriors, viz., Kshimadhati, O monarch, hath been slain in battle by Bhimasena with his mace. So also that great bowman, viz., the mighty king Jalasandha, after causing an immense carnage, hath been slain by Satyaki in battle. That prince of Rakshasas, viz., Alayuda, unto whose vehicle were yoked asses, of monstrous shape, hath been dispatched to Yama's abode by Ghatotka, exerting himself with great prowess. Radha's son of the Sutta caste, and those mighty Ka warriors who were his brothers, and the Kakiyas, the Malavas, the Matrakas, the Dravidas of fierce prowess, the Yodhyas, the Lalityas, the Kshudrakas, the Usnaras, the Tandikaras, the Savitriputras, the Easterners, the Northerners, the Westerners, and the Southerners, O sire, have all been slain by Savyasi. Large bands of foot soldiers, myriads upon myriads of steeds, large number of car warriors, and many huge elephants, have been slain. Many heroes also, with standards and weapons, and with armor and attire and ornaments, and endued with perseverance and possessed of high birth and good conduct, have been slain in battle by Partha, who is never fatigued with exertion. Others, endued with immeasurable might, and desirous of slaying their foes, have met with a similar fate. These and many other kings, numbering thousands, with their followers, have, O monarch, been slain in battle. That which thou askest me I am answering now. Even thus did the destruction take place when Arjuna and Karna fought. Even as Mahendra slew Vritra, and Rama slew Ravana, even as Krishna slew Narakamara in battle, even as the mighty Rama of Bhrigu's race slew the heroic Kartavirya, invincible in battle, with all his kinsmen and friends, after fighting a terrible battle celebrated through the three worlds, even as Skanda slew the Asura, Mahasha, and Rudra slew the Asura, and Daka, even so hath Arjuna, O king, in single combat, slain, with all his kinsmen, that foremost of smiters, viz., Karna, who was invincible in battle and upon whom the Dhritarashtras had placed their hopes of victory, and who was the great cause of the hostility with the Pandavas. Pandu's son hath now accomplished that which at one time thou couldst not believe him capable of accomplishing, although, O monarch, well-meaning friends failed not to apprise thee of it. That calamity, fraught with great destruction, hath now come. Thou, O king, wishing them well, hast heaped those evils on the heads of thy covetous sons. The fruit of those evils is now manifesting itself. 6. Dhritarashtra said, Thou hast, O son, mentioned the names of those of my side that have been slain in battle by the Pandavas. Tell me now, O Sanjaya, the names of those amongst the Pandavas that have been slain by the people of my side. Sanjaya said, The Kuntis possessed of great prowess in battle, endued with great energy and great might, have been slain in fight by Bhishma, with all their kinsmen and advisers. The Narayanas, the Vallabhadras, and hundreds of other heroes, all devoted to the Pandavas, have been slain in battle by the heroic Bhishma. Satyajit, who was equal to the diadem-decked Arjuna himself in battle as regards energy and might, hath been slain in battle by Drona of Shorain. Many mighty bowmen among the Panchalas, all of whom were skilled in battle, encountering Drona, have repaired to Yama's abode. So the two kings Virata and Drupada, both venerable in years, who exerted themselves with great prowess for their ally, have, with their sons, been slain in battle by Drona. That invincible hero, viz., Abhimanyu, who, though a child in years, was still equal in battle to Arjuna war Keshava war Baladeva, O Lord, that warrior who was highly accomplished in battle, after making an immense slaughter of the foe, was at last encompassed by 6 foremost of Ka warriors and slain by them. Unable to resist Arjuna himself, they thus slew Arjuna's son. Deprived of his Ka, that hero, viz., the son of Subhadra, still stayed in battle, remembering the duties of a Kshatriyu. At last, O king, Dashasna's son slew him on the field. The slayer of the Pitishkshatras, viz., the handsome son of Amvashtha, surrounded by a large force, had put forth all his prowess for the sake of his allies. Having made a great slaughter among the foe, he was encountered by Duryodhana's son, the brave Lakshmana, in battle and dispatched to Yama's abode. The mighty bowman Vrihanta, accomplished in arms and invincible in battle, hath been dispatched to Yama's abode by Dushasana, exerting himself with great prowess. The two kings Manamat and Dandadara, both of whom were invincible in battle and had put forth their prowess for their allies, have been slain by Drona. And Sumat, the ruler of the Bijas, that mighty Ka warrior at the head of his own forces, hath been dispatched to Yama's abode by Drona, exerting himself with great prowess. Sitarasana, the ruler of the sun host, with his son, Mahabharata, hath been forcibly dispatched by Samudrasana to Yama's abode. Another ruler of a maritime country, viz., Nila, and Vyakadatta of great energy, have both, O king, been dispatched to Yama's abode by Ashvatthama. Citrayuda and Citrayudan, after making a great slaughter, have both been slain in battle by Vikana, exerting himself with great prowess and displaying diverse maneuvers of his car. The chief of the Kakiyas, who was equal to Vrikadara himself in battle and surrounded by Kakiya warriors, has been slain by Kakiya, the brother by the brother. Janamjaya of the hilly country, endued with great prowess and accomplished in encounters with a mace, hath, O king, been slain by thy son Durmaka. Those two foremost of men, viz., the brothers Rachamana, like two brilliant planets, have together been dispatched to heaven by Drona with his shafts. Many other kings, O monarch, endued with great prowess, have fought for the Pandavas. Having achieved the most difficult feats, all of them have gone to Yama's abode. Purujit and Kuntibhoa, the two maternal uncles of Savyas Asi, have been dispatched by Drona with shafts to such regions as are attained by death in battle. Apibu of the Kasis, at the head of many of his followers, hath been obliged by Vasudhana's son to lay down his life in battle. Yadamanu of immeasurable prowess, and Utamor of great energy, after slaying hundreds of heroic warriors, have themselves been slain by our men. The Bankala prince Maitravarman, O Bharata, those two foremost of bowmen, have been dispatched to Yama's abode by Drona. Shikandi's son Kshitradiva, that foremost of warriors, possessed of great bravery, hath, O king, been slain by thy grandson Lakshmana, O sire. The two heroes Susitra and Citravarman, who were sire and son and endued with great might, and who careered fearlessly in battle, have been slain by Drona. Vardhakshami, O monarch, who was like the ocean at full tide, having had his weapons exhausted in battle, hath at last obtained undisturbed peace. That foremost of suitors, viz., son of Indu, having consumed many foes in battle, hath, at last, O king, been slain by Balika. Drishtaketu, O monarch, that foremost of Ka warriors among the cities, after accomplishing the most difficult feats, hath repaired to the abode of the armor. Similarly, the heroic Satyadrati, endues with great prowess, having made a great slaughter in battle for the sake of the Pandavas, has been dispatched to Yama's abode. That lord of earth, viz., Sukatu, the son of Shishupala, having slain many foes, hath at last been slain by Drona in battle. Virata's son Sanka, as also Uttara of great strength, having accomplished the most difficult feats, have repaired to Yama's abode. Similarly, Satyadrati of the Matsyas, and Madhiraswa of great energy, and Suryadatta possessed of great prowess, have all been slain by Drona with his shafts. Srunimat also, O monarch, having fought with great prowess and accomplished the most difficult feats, hath repaired to Yama's abode. Similarly, the chief of the Magadhas, that slayer of hostile heroes, endued with great energy and acquainted with the highest weapons, sleepeth on the field of battle, slain by Bhishma. Vasudhana also, having made an immense carnage in battle, has been dispatched to Yama's abode by Bharadwaja's son, exerting himself with great prowess. These and many other mighty warriors of the Pandavas have been slain by Drona, exerting himself with great energy. I have now told them all that thou hadst asked me. 7. Dhritarashtra said, when all the foremost of my warriors, O Sanjaya, have perished, I do not think that the remnant of my army will not perish. When those two heroes, those two mighty bowmen, those two foremost of the Kurus, Bhishma and Drona, have been slain, what use can I any longer have with life? I cannot also brook the death of Radha's son, their tournament of battle, the might of whose arms was as great as that of 10,000 elephants. O foremost of speakers, tell me now, O Suta, who are yet alive in my army after the death of all the foremost heroes. Thou hast told me the names of those that have fallen. It seems, however, to me that those who are still alive are almost all dead. Sanjaya said, that hero, O king, to whom Drona, that foremost of Brahmanas, imparted many blazing, celestial, and mighty weapons of the four kinds, that mighty warrior, possessed of skill and lightness of hands, that hero of firm grasp, strong weapons, and powerful shafts, that high-souled son of Drona, capable of shooting to a great distance, is still on the field, desirous of battling for thy sake. That dweller of the Anatu country, that son of Ridika, that mighty warrior, that foremost one among the Satwatas, that chief of the Bhajas, Kritavarma, accomplished in arms, is on the field, desirous of battle. Artyana's son, dauntless in battle, that first of warriors, that foremost of all yet on thy side, he that abandoned his own sister's sons, the Pandavas, for making his own words true, that hero endues with great activity, who promised in the presence of Yudhishthira that he would in battle depress the proud spirit of Karna, that invincible Sholya, who is equal unto Sakra himself in energy, is still on the field, desirous of battling for thy sake. Accompanied by his own force consisting of Arjunas, Sandavas, mountaineers, dwellers of riparian regions, Kambojas, and Vanayas, the king of the Gandhras stayeth on the field, desirous of battling for thy sake. Sharadvata's son called Gautama, O king, endues with mighty arms and capable of fighting with diverse weapons in diverse beautiful ways, taking up a beautiful and large bow capable of bearing great strain, stayeth on the field, desirous of battle. That mighty warrior, the son of the ruler of the Kakiyas, riding on a goodly car equipped with standard and goodly steeds, stayeth on the field, O chief of Kuru's race, for battling for thy sake. Thy son also, that foremost of heroes in Kuru's race, Purumitra, O king, riding on his car possessed of the effulgence of fire or the sun, stayeth on the field, like the sun himself shining brilliantly in the cloudless firmament. Duryodhana also, endued with great energy, in the midst of an elephant force and accompanied by many foremost of combatants, stayeth on his car adorned with gold, desirous of engaging in battle. In the midst of many kings, that foremost of men, possessed of the splendor of a lotus, looked resplendent in his beautiful armor of gold like a fire with little smoke or the sun emerged from the clouds. So also thy son Sushna, armed with sword and shield, and the heroic Satyasena, are staying with Sitarasena, their hearts full of joy and themselves desirous of battle. Endues with modesty, the Brata princes Satyayuda, Sarutavarman, and Jaya, Dala, and Satyavrata, and Dusala, all of whom are possessed of great might, stay on the field, desirous of battle. The ruler of the Kaitavyas, that prince proud of his courage, and capable of fearlessly careering in battle and slaying his foes, possessing foot soldiers and cavalry, and elephants and cars, stayeth on the field, desirous of battling for thy sake. the heroic Srutayu and Srutayuda, and Citrangada and Citravarman, those foremost of men, those proud warriors capable of smiting effectually and possessed of sureness of aim, stay on the field, desirous of battle. The high Sulsatyasunda, the son of Karna, stayeth on the field, desirous of battle. 2 other sons of Karna, possessing a knowledge of high weapons and endued with great lightness of hands, are both staying, O king, at the head of the forces that are large and incapable of being pierced by warriors of little energy, desirous of battling for thy sake. Accompanied by these heroes and by many other foremost of warriors, O king, that are possessed of immeasurable might, the Kuru king, Duryodhana, is staying like a second Indra in the midst of his elephant division in expectation of victory. Dhritarashtra said, Thou hast told me duly all that are alive both amongst us and the foe. From this I plainly see on which side the victory will be. Indeed, it may be inferred from the facts. Vshampayana continued, while saying this, Dhritarashtra the son of Ambika, having learnt that only a small portion of his army was alive, for all his foremost of warriors had died, felt his heart to be exceedingly agitated by grief. The king swooned away. Partially restored to his senses, he addressed Sanjaya, saying, Wait for a moment. And the king said, O son, having heard of this dire calamity, my heart is greatly agitated. My senses are being stupefied, and my limbs are about to be paralyzed. Having said these words, Dhritarashtra the son of Ambika, that lord of earth, lost his senses and fell down on the earth. 8. Janamejaya said, having heard of Karna's fall and the slaughter of his sons, What, O foremost of regenerate ones, did the king say, after he had been a little comforted? Indeed, poignant was the grief that he experienced, arising from the calamity that befell his sons. Tell me, I ask thee, all that the king said on that occasion. Vshampayana said, hearing of the slaughter of Karna that was incredible and astounding, that was dreadful and capable of paralyzing the senses of all creatures, that looked like the downfall of Maru, or a never-to-be-believed clouding of the intellect of the wise Shukra, or the defeat of Indra of terrible feats at the hands of his foes, or the falling down on the earth of the resplendent sun from the firmament, or a scarcely to be comprehended drying up of the ocean, that receptacle of inexhaustible waters, or the annihilation, perfectly astounding, of the earth, the firmament, the points of the compass, and the waters, or the fruitlessness of acts both virtuous and sinful. King Dhritarashtra, having earnestly reflected for some time on it, thought that his army had been annihilated. Thinking that other creatures also, as unslayable as Karna, would meet with a similar fate, King Dhritarashtra the son of Ambika, scorched with grief and sighing like a snake, with limbs almost palsied, long breaths, highly cheerless, and filled with melancholy, began to lament, saying, Oh! And alas! And the king said, O Sanjaya, the heroic son of Idrata was endued with the prowess of the lion or the elephant. His neck was as thick as that of a bull, and his eyes, gait, and voice were like the bull's. Of limbs as hard as the thunderbolt, that young man, like a bull never flying away from a bull, never desisted from battle even if his foe happened to be the great Indra himself. At the sound of his bowstring and palms and at the whiz of his arrowy showers, men and steeds and cars and elephants fled away from battle. Relying upon that mighty armed one, that slayer of large bands of foes, that warrior of unfading glory, Duryodhana had provoked hostilities with those mighty car warriors, the sons of Pandu. How then could Karna, that foremost of car warriors, that tiger among men, that hero of irresistible onset, be forcibly slain by Partha in battle? Relying on the might of his own arms, he always disregarded Keshava of unfading glory, and Ananjaya, and the Vrishnis, and all other foes. Often did he use to say unto the foolish, avaricious crestfallen, kingdom coveting, and afflicted Duryodhana even such words as these, alone, I shall, in battle, throw down from their foremost of cars, those two invincible warriors united together, the wielder of Sanga and the wielder of Gandiva. He had subjugated many invincible and mighty foes, the Gandhras, the Madrakas, the Matsyas, the Trigartas, the Tanganas, the Karsas, the Panchalas, the Vidas, the Kulindas, the Kazikoslas, the Samas, the Angas, the Nishadas, the Pandras, the Kikakas, the Vatsas, the Kalingas, the Taralas, the Asmakas, and the Rishikas. Subjugating all these brave races, by means of his keen and whetted arrows equipped with canker feathers, that foremost of car warriors, Radha's son, had caused all of them to pay tribute to us for the aggrandizement of Duryodhana. Alas, how could that warrior acquainted with celestial weapons, that protector of armies, Karna the son of Vikardana, called also Vrisha, of mighty energy, be slain in battle by his foes, the heroic and mighty sons of Pandu? As Indra is the foremost of gods, Karna was the foremost of men. In the three worlds no third person has been heard of by us to be like them. Amongst steeds, Ukasravas is the foremost, amongst Yakshas, Vshravana is the foremost, amongst celestials, Indra is the foremost, amongst smiters, Karna was the foremost. Unvanquished by even the most heroic and the mightiest of monarchs, he had, for Duryodhana's aggrandizement, subjugated the whole earth. The ruler of Magadha, having by conciliation and honours obtained Karna for a friend, had challenged all the Kshatriyas of the world, except the Kauravas and the Adavas, to battle. Hearing that Karna hath been slain by Savyasasi in single combat, I am plunged in an ocean of woe like a wrecked vessel in the vast deep. Indeed, hearing that that foremost of men, that best of car warriors, hath been slain in single combat, I am sinking in an ocean of grief like a person without a raft in the sea. When, O Sanjaya, I do not die of such grief, I think my heart is impenetrable and made of something harder than the thunderbolt. Hearing of the defeat and humiliation of kinsmen and relatives and allies, who else in the world, O Suta, save my wretched self, would not yield up his life? I desire to have poison or fire or a fall from the summit of a mountain. I am unable, O Sanjaya, to bear this heavy load of grief. 9. Sanjaya said, the world regards thee to be equal to Yayati, the son of Nuasha, in beauty, birth, fame, asceticism, and learning. Indeed, in learning, thou art, O king, like a great rishi, highly accomplished and crowned with success. Summon thy fortitude. Do not yield to grief. Dhritarashtra said, I think destiny is supreme, and exertion fruitless, since even Karna, who was like a charlotte tree, hath been slain in battle, having slaughtered Yudhishthira's army and the large throngs of the Bankalakar warriors, having scorched all the points of the compass by means of his arrowy showers, having stupefied the Parthas in battle like the wielder of the thunderbolts stupefying the Asuras. Alas, how could that mighty car warrior, slain by the foe, fall down on the earth like a large tree uprooted by the tempest? Indeed, I do not behold the end of my sorrows like a drowning man unable to see the end of the ocean. My anxieties are increasing. I do not desire to live, hearing of Karna's death and Falguni's victory. Indeed, O Sanjaya, I regard the slaughter of Karna to be highly incredible. Without doubt, this hard heart of mine is made of the essence of adamant, for it does not burst into 1,000 fragments upon hearing of the fall of the Karna. Without doubt, the gods ordained, before my birth, a very long life for me, since sore distressed on hearing of the death of Karna, I do not die. 5. O Sanjaya, on this life of one that is destitute of friends, brought today, O Sanjaya, to this wretched plight, Miserably shall I have to live, of foolish understanding that I am, pitied by all. Having formerly been the honoured of the whole world, how shall I, O Suta, live, overridden by foes? From pain to greater pain and calamity have I come, O Sanjaya, in consequence of the fall of Bhishma and Drona and the high-souled Karna. I do not see that anyone of my army will escape with life when the Suta's son hath been slain in battle. He was the great raft, O Sanjaya, to my sons. That hero, having shot innumerable arrows, hath been slain in battle. What use have I of life, without that bull among men? Without doubt, the son of a traitor, afflicted with arrows, fell down from his car, like a mountain peak riven by the fall of thunder. Without doubt, bathed in blood, he layeth, adorning the earth, like an elephant slain by an infuriate prince of elephants. He who was the strength of the Dharashtras, he who was an object of fear to the sons of Pandu, alas, he was Karna, that pride of all bowmen, hath been slain by Arjuna. He was a hero, a mighty bowman, the dispeller of the fears of my sons. Alas, that hero, reft of life, lieth on the earth, like mountain struck down by Indra. The fulfillment of Duryodhana's wishes is even like locomotion to one that is lame, or the gratification of the poor man's desire, or stray drops of water to one that is thirsty. Planned in one way, our schemes end otherwise. Alas, destiny is all-powerful, and time incapable of being transgressed. Was my son Dashasana, O Suta, slain, while flying away from the field, humbled to the dust, of cheerless soul, and destitute of all manliness? O son, O Sanjaya, I hope he did no dastardly act on that occasion. Did not that hero meet with his death like the other Kshatriyas that have fallen? The foolish Duryodhana did not accept Yudhishthira's constant advice, wholesome as medicine, against the propriety of battle. Possessed of great renown, Partha, when begged for drink by Bhishma, then lying on his arrowy bed, pierced the surface of the earth. Beholding the jet of water caused by the son of Pandu, the mighty armed, Bhishma, addressing Duryodhana, said, O sire, make peace with the Pandavas. Hostilities ceasing, peace will be thine. Let the war between thyself and thy cousins end with me. Enjoy the earth in brotherliness with the sons of Pandu. Having disregarded those counsels, my child is certainly repenting now. That has now come to pass which Bhishma of great foresight said. As regards myself, O Sanjaya, I am destitute of counsellors and reft of sons. In consequence of gambling, I am fallen into great misery like a bird shorn of its wings. As children engaged in sport, O Sanjaya, having seized a bird and cut off its wings, merrily release it, but the creature cannot achieve locomotion in consequence of its winglessness. Even so have I become, like a bird shorn of its wings. Weak, destitute of every resource, without kinsmen and deprived of relatives and friends, cheerless and overpowered by enemies, to which point of the compass shall I go? He who vanquished all the Kambodjas and the Imvashthas with the Kakiyas, that puissant one, who, having for the accomplishment of his purpose vanquished the Gandhras and the Vidas in battle, subjugated the whole earth for the sake of Duryodhana's aggrandizement, alas, he hath been vanquished by the heroic and strong Pandavas endued with mighty arms. Upon the slaughter, in battle, of that mighty bowman, Karna, by the diadem-decked Arjuna, tell me, O Sanjaya, who were these heroes that stayed on the field? I hope he was not alone and abandoned by friends, when slain in battle by the Pandavas. Thou hast, O sire, told me, before this, how our brave warriors have fallen. With his powerful shafts Shikhandi felled in battle that foremost of all wielders of weapons, viz., Bhishma, who did nothing to repel the attack. Similarly, Sanjaya, Drupada's son Drishthadhyumna, uplifting his scimitar, slew the mighty bowman Drona who, already pierced with many arrows, had laid aside his weapons in battle and devoted himself to yoga. These two were both slain at a disadvantage and especially by deceit. Even this is what I have heard about the slaughter of Bhishma and Drona. Indeed, Bhishma and Drona, while contending in fight, were incapable of being slain in battle by the wielder of the thunderbolt himself by fair means. This that I tell thee is the truth. As regards Gana, how, indeed, could death touch him, that hero equal unto Indra himself, while he was engaged in shooting his manifold celestial weapons? He unto whom in exchange for his earrings, Gandhara had given that foe-slaying, gold-decked, and celestial dart of the splendor of lightning, he who had, lying, within his quiver, a mist-sandal dust, that snake-mouthed celestial arrow decked with gold, equipped with goodly wings, and capable of slaying all foes, he who, disregarding those heroic and mighty warriors having Bhishma and Drona at the head, had acquired from Jamadani's son the terrible Brahmastra, that mighty armed one, who, having seen their warriors with Drona at the head afflicted with arrows and turn away from the field, had cut off with his keen shafts the bow of Subhadra's son, he who, having in a trice deprived the invincible Bhimasena endued with the might of 10,000 elephants and the speed of the wind, of his car, had laughed at him, he who, having vanquished Sahadeva by means of his straight shafts and made him callous, slew him not from compassion and considerations of virtue, he who, with Chakra's dart, slew that prince of Rakshasas, Ghatotkaka, who from desire of victory, had invoked to 1,000 kinds of illusions, he whose feats in battle, filling Dhananjaya with fear, had made the latter for such a long period avoid a single combat with him, alas, how could that hero be slain in battle? How could he be slain by foes unless one of these had happened to him, viz., the destruction of his car, the snapping of his bow, and the exhaustion of his weapons? Who could vanquish that tiger among men, like a real tiger, endued with great impetuosity, Kana, while shaking his formidable bow and shooting therefrom his terrible shafts and celestial weapons in battle? Surely, his bow broke, or his car sank in the earth, or his weapons became exhausted, since thou tellest me that he is slain. I do not, indeed, see any other cause for explaining his slaughter. That Hysalid one who had made the terrible vow, I will not wash my feet till I slay Falguni, that warrior through whose fear that bull among men, King Yudhishthira the Just, had not, in the wilderness, for 13 years continuously, obtained a wink of sleep, that Hysalid hero of great prowess, relying upon whose valor my son had forcibly dragged the wife of the Pandavas to the assembly, and there in the midst of that conclave, in the very sight of the Pandavas and in the presence of the Kuras, had addressed the princess of Bankala as the wife of slaves, that hero of the Sutta caste, who in the midst of the assembly had addressed Krishna, saying, all thy husbands, O Krishna, that are even like sesamum seeds without kernel, and no more, therefore, seek some other husband, O thou of the fairest complexion. And in wrath had caused her to listen to other expressions equally harsh and rude. How was that hero slain by the foe? He who had said unto Duryodhana even these words, viz., if Bhishma who boasteth of his prowess in battle or Drona who is invincible in fight, doth not, from partiality, slay the sons of Kunti, O Duryodhana, even I will slay them all, let the fever of thy heart be dispelled. Who also said, what will Arjuna's, Gandhara and the two inexhaustible quivers do to that shaft of mine, smeared with cool sandal paste, when it will course through the welkin? Alas, how could that warrior possessed of shoulders broad as those of the bull be slain by Arjuna? He who, disregarding the fierce touch of the arrows shot from Gandhara, had addressed Krishna, saying, thou hast no husbands now, and glared at the Pandavas. He who, O Sanjaya, relying on the might of his own arms, had entertained no fear, for even a moment, of the Pathas with their sons, and Janardana, he, I think, could not possibly meet with death at the hands of the very gods, with Vasava at their head rushing against him in fury. What then need I say, O sire, of the Pandavas? The person could not be seen competent to stay before the son of a traitor, while the latter, putting on his fences, used to touch the bowstring. It was possible for the earth to be destitute of the splendor of the sun, of the moon, or of fire, but the death of that foremost of men, who never retreated from battle, could not be possible. That foolish child of mine, of wicked understanding, who having got Karna, as also his brother Dushasana, for his ally, has made up his mind for the rejection of Vasudev's proposals, surely, that white, beholding the slaughter of the bull-shouldered Karna and of Dushasana, is now indulging in lamentations. Seeing the Kartana's son slain in single combat by Asi, and the Pandavas crowned with victory, what indeed did Duryodhana say? Seeing Dharmashana slain in battle and Vrishasan also, and seeing his host break when slaughtered by mighty Ka warriors, beholding also the kings of his army turn back their faces, intent on flight, and his Ka warriors already fled, I think that son of mine is now indulging in lamentations. Beholding his host dispirited, what, indeed, did the ungovernable, proud, and foolish Duryodhana, with passions not under control, say? Having himself provoked such fierce hostility, though dissuaded by all his friends, what, indeed, did Duryodhana, who has suffered a great loss in battle of friends and followers, say? Beholding his brother slain in battle by Bhimasena, and upon his blood being drunk, what indeed did Duryodhana say? My son had, with the ruler of the Gandhras, said, Karna will slay Arjuna in battle. When he saw that Karna slain, what indeed did he say? What, O sire, did Shakuni, the son of Sabala, who had formerly been filled with joy after going through the match at dice and cheating the son of Pandu, say when he saw Karna slain? What did that mighty Ka warrior among the Satwatas, that great bowman, Kritavama the son of Ridika, say when he saw Vayakatana slain? Endued with youth, possessed of a handsome form, agreeable to the sight, and celebrated throughout the world, what, O Sanjaya, did Ashvatthama, the intelligent son of Drona, upon whom Brahmanas and Kshatriyas and Kshatriyas who are desirous of acquiring the science of alms wait for protections, say when he saw Karna slain? What did Sharadvata's son Kripa, O sire, of Gautama's race, that foremost of Ka warriors, that teacher of the science of arms, say when he saw Karna slain? What did the mighty leader of the Madras warriors, that king of the Madras, the great bowman Sholya of the Sauvira clan, that tournament of assemblies, that foremost of Ka warriors, temporarily engaged in driving the car, say when he saw Karna slain? What also did all the other warriors, difficult of defeat in battle, those lords of earth that came to fight, say, O Sanjaya, when they behold Vayakatana slain? After the fall of the heroic Drona, that tiger among Ka warriors, that bull among men, who, O Sanjaya, became the heads of the several division in their order. Tell me, O Sanjaya, how that foremost of Ka warriors, Sholya the ruler of the Madras, became engaged in driving the car of Vayakatana. Who were they that guarded the right wheel of the suitor's son while the latter was engaged in fight? And who were they that guarded his left wheel? And who were they that stood at the rear of that hero? Who were those heroes that did not desert Karna? And who were those mean fellows that ran away? How was the mighty Ka warrior Karna slain amidst your united selves? How also did those mighty Ka warriors, the brave Pandavas, advance against him, shooting showers of shafts like a clouds pouring torrents of rain? Tell me also, O Sanjaya, how that mighty shaft, celestial and foremost of its species, and equipped with a head like that of the serpent became futile. I do not, O Sanjaya, see the possibility of even a small remnant of my cheerless host being saved when its leaders have been crushed. Hearing of the slaughter of those two heroes, those two mighty bowmen, Bhishma and Drona, who were ever ready to lay down their lives for my sake, what use have I of life? Again and again I am unable to endure that Karna, the might of whose arms equalled that of 10,000 elephants, should be slain by the Pandavas. Tell me, O Sanjaya, all that occurred in the battle between the brave warriors of the Kauravas and their foes, after the death of Drona. Tell me also how the sons of Kunti fought the battle with Karna, and how that slayer of foes received his quietus in the fight. 10. Sanjaya said, after the fall of the mighty bowman Drona on that day, O Bharata, and after the purpose had been baffled of that mighty Car warriors, viz., the son of Drona, and after the vasty army, O monarch, of the Kauravas had fled away, Partha, having arrayed his own troops, stayed on the field with his brothers. Perceiving him staying on the field, thy son, O bull of Bharata's race, seeing his own army running away, rallied them with great courage. Having caused his divisions to take up their stand, thy son, O Bharata, relying on the might of his arms, fought for a long time with his foes, the Pandavas, who, having gained their end, were filled with joy and had been struggling for hours together. On the approach there of the evening twilight, he caused the troops to be withdrawn. Having caused the withdrawal of their troops, and having entered their own encampment, the Kauravas held with one another a consultation about their own welfare, seated like the celestials on costly couches overlaid with rich coverlets, and on excellent seats and luxurious beds. Then King Duryodhana, addressing those mighty bowmen in agreeable and highly sweet expression, spoke the following words suited to the occasion. Duryodhana said, Ye foremost of intelligent men, declare all of you, without delay, your opinions. Under these circumstances, ye kings, what is necessary and what is still more necessary? Sanjaya continued, when that prince of men had spoken those words, those lions among men, seated on their thrones, made various gestures expressive of their desire of battle. Observing the indications of those who were all desirous of pouring their lives and libations on the battle fire, and beholding the monarch's face radiant as morning sun, the preceptor's son endued with intelligence and accomplished in speech, said these words, enthusiasm, opportunity, skill and policy, these are the means declared by the learned, to be capable of accomplishing all ends. They are, however, dependent on destiny. Those foremost of men we had on our side, equal unto the celestials, mighty Car warriors all, possessed of policy, devoted, accomplished, and loyal, have been slain. For all that we should not despair of victory. If all these means be properly applied, even destiny may be made propitious. All of us, therefore, O Bharata, shall install Karna, that foremost of men, endued besides with every accomplishment, in the command of the army. Making Karna our commander, we shall crush our foes. This Karna is endued with great might. He is a hero, accomplished in weapons, and incapable of defeat in battle. Irresistible as Yama himself, he is quite competent to vanquish our foes in battle. Hearing these words from the preceptor's son, O king, at that time, built great hopes on Karna. Cherishing the hope in his heart that after the fall of Bhishma and Drona, Karna would vanquish the Pandavas, and comforted by it, O Bharata, Duryodhana then, filled with joy at having heard those words of Ashvatthama, steadying his mind and relying on the might of his arms, said unto Radha's son, O monarch, these words that were fraught with affection and regard, and that were true, delightful, and beneficial to himself, O Gana, I know thy prowess, and the great friendship thou bearest to me. For all that, O mighty armed one, I shall address to thee certain words that are for thy good. Having heard them, O hero, do that which may appear desirable to thee. Thou art endued with great wisdom, and thou art even my supreme refuge. Those two utterators that were my generals, viz., Bhishma and Drona, have been slain. Be thou my general, thou that art mightier than they. Both of those great bowmen were advanced in years. They were, besides, partial to Dhananjaya. Still both those heroes were respected by me, O son of Radha, at thy word. Viewing his relationship of grandsire unto them, the sons of Pandu, O sire, were spared in dreadful battle by Bhishma for 10 successive days. Thyself also having laid aside thy weapons, the valiant Bhishma was slain in great battle by Falguni with Shikhandi before him. After that great bowman had fallen and betaken himself to his bed of arrows, it was at thy word, O tiger among men, that Drona was made our leader. By him also were the sons of Pritha spared, in consequence, as I think, of their relationship unto him of pupils. That old man also has been slain by Drishthadhyumna more speedily. I do not see, even on reflection, another warrior equal to thee in battle, thee, that is, whose prowess could not be measured by even those two foremost of warriors that have been slain in the fight. Without doubt, thou alone today art competent to win victory for us. Before, in the middle, and later on, thou hast accordingly acted for our good. Therefore, like leader, it behoveth thee, in this battle, to bear the burden thyself. Thyself install thy own self in the generalship. Like the celestial generalissimo, the Lord Skanda of unfading prowess, supporting the celestial army, do thou support this Tarishta host. Like Mahendra slaying the Danavas, destroy thou all the throngs of our foes. Beholding thee staying in battle, the Pandavas, those mighty car warriors, will, with the Panchalas, fly away from battle, like the Danavas at sight of Vishnu. Do thou, therefore, lead this vast force. When thou shalt stand resolved on the field, the Pandavas of wicked hearts, the Panchalas, and the Srinjayas, will all fly away with their friends. As the risen sun, scorching everything by his energy, destroyeth the thick gloom, even so do thou destroy our foes. Sanjaya continued, strong became that hope, O king, in the heart of thy son, viz., that where Bhishma and Drona had been slain, Karna would vanquish the Pandavas. Cherishing that hope within his heart, he said unto Karna, O Suta's son, Path never wishes to fight, standing before thee. Karna said, I have, O son of Gandhari, said before in thy presence, even these words, vanquish all the Pandavas with their sons and Janardana. I shall become thy general. In this there is no doubt. Tranquilize thyself, O monarch, I consider the Pandavas to be already vanquished. Sanjaya continued, thus addressed, O monarch, King Duryodhana then stood up with all the monarchs, like he of 100 sacrifices with the gods, for honouring Karna with the command of the army, like the celestials for honouring Skanda. Then, O monarch, all the kings headed by Duryodhana, desirous of victory, installed Karna in the command, according to the rites enjoined by the ordinance. With golden and earthen jars filled to the brim with water and sanctified with mantras, with tusks of elephants and horns of rhinoceroses and mighty bulls, with other vessels decked with jewels and gems, with also fragrant herbs and plants, and with other articles collected in abundance, Karna, seated at his ease on the seat made of Udamvara wood and overlaid with silken cloth, was invested with the command, according to the rites in the scriptures. Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and respectable Shudras, praised the titled one after he was bathed on that excellent seat. Thus installed in the command, O king, that slayer of foes, the son of Radha, caused, by presents of niskas and kine and other wealth, many foremost of Brahmanas to utter blessings on him. vanquish the Pathas with Govinda and all their followers. Even these were the words that the eulogists and the Brahmanas said unto him, O bull among men. And they also said, Slay the Pathas and the Panchalas, O son of Radha, for our victory, like risen sun ever destroying darkness with his fierce rays. The sons of Bandu with Keshava are not able to even look at the shafts shot by thee, like owls unable to gaze at the burning rays of the sun. The Pathas with the Panchalas are incapable of standing before thee armed with weapons, like the Danavas before Indra in battle. Installed in the command, Radha's son of incomparable splendor looked resplendent in beauty and radiance like a second Sunday, having installed the son of Radha, thus, in the command of the army. Thy son, urged on by death, regarded himself as one who had his purpose accomplished. That chastiser of foes, Karna, also, O king, having obtained the command, ordered the troops to be arrayed at the rise of the Sunday, surrounded by thy sons. O Bharata, Karna looked resplendent like Skanda surrounded by the celestials, in the battle having Sarika for its evil root. 11. Dhritarashtra said, after having obtained the command of the army, and after he had been addressed by the king himself in those sweet and brotherly words, and after he had ordered the troops to be arrayed at the hour of sunrise, Tell me, O Sanjaya, what did Vikatana's son Karna do? Sanjaya said, having learnt Karna's wishes, thy sons, O bull of Bharata's race, ordered the troops to be arrayed with joyful music. While it still wanted a long period for the coming of the dawn, a loud noise of array, O king, suddenly arose among thy troops. And the uproar that arose became tremendous and touched the very heavens, of foremost of elephants and fenced cars while under process of equipment, of foot soldiers and steeds, O monarch, while putting on their armor or in course of being harnessed, and of combatants moving with activity and shouting unto one another. Then the suitor's son bearing a gold-backed bow appeared on the field, in his car possessed of the splendor of the radiant sun, crowned with many banners, equipped with a white standard, with steeds of the hue of grains, bearing the device of the elephant's rope, filled with 100 quivers, furnished with mace and wooden fence, freighted with shatignis and rows of bells and darts and lances and spears, and supplied with many bows. And the suitor's son appeared on the field, blowing his conch, O king, decorated with a network of gold, and shaking his formidable bow adorned with pure gold. Beholding the mighty bowman Karna, that foremost of car warriors, seated on his car, difficult of approach and resembling the risen sun that destroys the gloom, none amongst the Kauravas, O tiger among men, recked, O sire, the loss of Bhishma or Drona or other men. Speeding the warriors, O sire, with the blasts of his conch, Karna caused the vast army of the Kauravas to be drawn out. Having arrayed the troops in the Makara array, that mighty bowman, that scorcher of foes, viz., Karna, proceeded against the Pandavas from desire of victory. In the tip of the beak of that Makara, O king, was stationed Karna himself. In the two eyes were the brave Shakuni and the mighty car warrior Aluka. In the head was Drona's son, and in the neck were all the uterine brothers. In the middle was King Duryodhana, supported by a large force. In the left foot, O monarch, was stationed Kritavama, accompanied by the Narayana troops, and those invincible warriors, the Gopalas. In the right foot, O king, was Gautama's son of prowess incapable of being baffled, surrounded by those mighty bowmen, viz., the Trigartas, and by the Southerners. In the left hind foot was stationed Shaulya with a large force raised in the country of Madras. In the right hind foot, O monarch, was Sushana of true vows, surrounded by 1,000 cars and 300 elephants. In the tail were the two royal brothers of mighty energy, viz., Citra and Citrasena, surrounded by large force. When, O great king, that foremost of men, Karna, Thus came out King Yudhishthira the Just, casting his eyes on Arjuna, said these words, "Behold, O Partha, how the Dhritarashtra force, O hero, in this battle, protected by heroes and mighty car warriors, hath been arrayed by Karna. This vast Dhritarashtra force hath lost its bravest warriors. They that remain, O mighty armed one, are feeble, equal, as I think, to straw. Only one great bowman, viz., the Suta's son, shineth in it. That foremost of car warriors is incapable of being vanquished by the three worlds with their mobile and immobile creatures, including the gods, Asuras and Gandharvas, and the Kinnaras and great serpents. If thou slayest him today, O mighty armed one, the victory will be thine, O Fulgana. The thorn also which for 12 years hath been planted in my heart will then be plucked out. Knowing this, O thou of mighty arms, form thou the array that thou wishest." Hearing those words of his brother, that Bandava of the white steeds disposed his army in counter-array after the form of the half-moon. On the left side was stationed Bhimasena, and on the right was stationed the great bowman Drishthadhyumna. In the middle of the array were the king and Dhananjaya the son of Pandu. Nakula and Sahadeva were at the rear of King Yudhishthira the Just. The two Panchala princes, Yudhamanyu and Uttamura, became the protectors of Arjuna's car-wheels. Protected by the diadem-decked Arjuna himself, they did not quit Arjuna for a moment. The remaining kings, possessed of great courage, clad in mail, stood in the array, each in the position assigned to him, according to the measure of his enthusiasm and resolution, O Bharata. Having thus formed their great array, O Bharata, the Pandavas, and the mighty bowmen of thy army set their hearts on battle. Beholding thy army disposed into battle array by the suitors, son in battled Duryodhana with all his brethren regarded the Pandavas to be already slain. Similarly Yudhishthira, O king, beholding the Pandava army disposed in array, regarded the Dhritarashtras with Karna to be already slain. Then conches, and kettle drums, and tabors, and large drums, and cymbals, and dindamas, and jarjaras, were loudly blown and beaten on all sides. Indeed, those louder-sounding instruments were blown and beaten, O king, among both the armies. Leonine roars also arouse, uttered by brave warriors for victory. And there also arouse, O king, the noise of neighing steeds and grunting elephants, and the fierce clatter of car wheels. None, O Bharata, in the core of the army, at that time, felt the loss of Drona, seeing the great bowman Karna clad in mail and stationed at the head of the array. Both armies, O monarch, teeming with joyous men, stood, eager for battle and ready to destroy each other without delay. There, the two heroes, viz., Karna and the son of Pandu, excited with wrath at sight of each other, and both firmly resolved, stood all-careered, O king, through their respective divisions. The two armies, as they advanced to meet each other, seemed to dance in joy. From the wings and the side wings of both, warriors desirous of battle came forth. Then commenced the battle, O monarch, of men, elephants, steeds, and cars, engaged in destroying one another. 12. Sanjaya said, Then those two vast armies, teeming with rejoicing men and steeds and elephants, resembling in splendor the celestial and the Asura hosts, meeting together, began to strike each other. Men, cars, steeds, elephants, and foot soldiers of fierce prowess, made sturdy strokes destructive of bodies and sin. Lion-like men strewed the earth with the heads of lion-like men, each resembling the full moon or the sun in splendor and the lotus in fragrance. Combatants cut off the heads of combatants, with crescent-shaped and broad-headed shafts and razor-faced arrows and axes and battle-axes. The arms of men of long and massive arms, cut off by men of long and massive arms, falling upon the earth, shone, decked with weapons and bracelets. with those writhing red arms adorned with red fingers and palms. The earth looked resplendent as if strewn with fierce five-headed snakes slain by Garuda. From elephants and cars and steeds, brave warriors fell down, struck by foes, like the denizens of heaven from their celestial cars on the exhaustion of their merits. Other brave warriors fell down by hundreds, crushed in that battle by brave combatants with heavy mace-spiked clubs and short bludgeons. Cars also, in that tumultuous fight, were crushed by cars, and infuriate elephants by infuriate compeers, and horsemen by horsemen. Men destroyed by cars, and cars by elephants, and horsemen by foot soldiers, and foot soldiers by horsemen, dropped down on the field, as also cars and steeds and foot soldiers destroyed by elephants, and cars and steeds and elephants by foot soldiers, and cars and foot soldiers and elephants by steeds, and men and elephants by cars. Great was the carnage made of car warriors and steeds and elephants, and men by men and steeds and elephants and car warriors, using their hands and feet and weapons and cars. When that host was being thus struck and slain by heroic warriors, the Parthas, headed by Vrikadara, advanced against us. They consisted of Drishthadhyumna and Shikhandi and the 5 sons of Draupadi and the Prabhadrakas, and Satyaki and Chekitana with the Dravida forces, and the Pandyas, the Kalas, and the Keralas, surrounded by a mighty array, all possessed of broad chests, long arms, tall statures, and large eyes, decked with ornaments, possessed of red teeth, endued with the prowess of infuriate elephants, attired in robes of diverse colours, smeared with powdered scents, armed with swords and nooses, capable of restraining mighty elephants, companions in death, and never deserting one another, equipped with quivers, bearing bows adorned with long locks, and agreeable in speech were the combatants of the infantry files led by Satyaki, belonging to the Andhra tribe, endued with fierce forms and great energy. Other brave warriors such as the Siddhas, the Pankalas, the Kayakayas, the Karashas, the Koslas, the Kanchas, and the Maghadas, also rushed forward. Their cars and steeds and elephants, all of the foremost kind, and their fierce foot soldiers, gladdened by the notes of diverse instruments, seemed to dance and laugh. In the midst of that vast force, came Vrikadara, riding on the neck of an elephant, and surrounded by many foremost of elephant soldiers, advancing against thy army. That fierce and foremost of elephants, duly equipped, looked resplendent, like the stone-built mansion on the top of the Rudai mountain, crowned with the risen sun day. Its armour of iron, the foremost of its kind, studded with costly gems, was as resplendent as the autumnal firmament bespangled with stars. With a lance in his outstretched arm, his head decked with a beautiful diadem, and possessed of the splendour of the meridian sun at autumn, Uma began to burn his foes. Beholding that elephant from a distance, Kshimadhati, himself on an elephant, challenging, rushed cheerfully towards Bhima, who was more cheerful still. An encounter then took place between those 2 elephants of fierce forms resembling 2 huge hills topped with trees, each fighting with the other as it liked. Those 2 heroes, then, whose elephants thus encountered each other, forcibly struck each other with lances endued with the splendour of solar rays, and uttered loud roars. Separating, they then careered in circles with their elephants, and each taking up a bow began to strike the other, gladdening the people around with their loud roars and the slaps on their armpits and the whiz of the arrows. They continued to utter leonine shouts. Endued with great strength, both of them, accomplished in weapons, fought, using their elephants with upturned trunks and decked with banners floating on the wind. Then each cutting off the other's bow, they roared at each other, and rained on each other showers of darts and lances like 2 masses of clouds in the rainy season pouring torrents of rain. Then Kshimadhati pierced Bhimasena in the centre of the chest with a lance endued with great impetuosity, and then with 6 others, and uttered a loud shout. With those lances sticking to his body, Bhimsena, whose form then blazed with wrath, looked resplendent like the cloud-covered sun with his rays issuing through the interstices of that canopy. Then Bhima carefully hurled at his antagonist a lance bright as the rays of the sun, coursing perfectly straight, and made entirely of iron. The ruler of the Kulutas then, drawing his bow, cut off that lance with 10 shafts and then pierced the son of Pandu with 60 shafts. Then Bhima the son of Pandu, taking up a bow whose twang resembled the roar of the clouds, uttered a loud shout and deeply afflicted with his shafts the elephant of his antagonist. Thus afflicted in that battle by Bhimsena with his arrows, that elephant, though sought to be restrained, stayed not on the field like a wind-blown cloud. The fierce prince of elephants owned by Bhima then pursues his flying compere, like the wind-blown mass of clouds pursuing another mass driven by the tempest. Restraining his own elephant, valiant Kshimadhati pierced with his shafts the pursuing elephant of Bhimsena. Then, with a well-shot razor-headed arrow that was perfectly straight, Kshimadhati cut off his antagonist's bow and then afflicted that hostile elephant. Filled with wrath, Kshimadhati then, in that battle, pierced Bhima and struck his elephant with many long shafts in every vital part. That huge elephant of Bhima then fell down, O Bharata. Bhima, however, who had jumped down from his elephant and stood on the earth before the fall of the beast, then crushed the elephant of his antagonist with his mace. And Vrikadara then struck Kshimadhati also, who, jumped down from his crushed elephant, was advancing against him with uplifted weapon. Kshimadhati, thus struck, fell down lifeless, with a sword in his arm, by the side of his elephant, like a lion struck down by thunder beside a thunder-riven hill. Beholding the celebrated king of the Kulutas slain, thy troops, O bull of Bharata's race exceedingly distressed, fled away. 13. Sanjaya said, Then the mighty and heroic bowman Karna began to smite the Pandava army in that battle, with his straight shafts. Similarly, those great car warriors, viz., the Pandavas, O king, filled with wrath, began to smite the army of thy son in the very sight of Karna. Karna also, O king, in that battle slew the Pandava army with his cloth-yard shafts, bright as the rays of the sun and polished by the hands of the smith. There, O Bharata, the elephants, struck by Karna with his shafts, uttered loud cries, lost strength, became faint, and wandered on all sides. While the army was being thus destroyed by the suitor's son, Nakula rushed with speed against that mighty car warrior. And Bhimsena rushed against Drona's son, who was engaged in the accomplishment of the most difficult feats. Satyaki checked the Kayakaya princes Vinda and Anuvinda. King Citrasena rushed against the advancing Srutakarman, and Prativindaya against Citri owning a beautiful standard and a beautiful bow. Duryodhana rushed against King Yudhishthira, the son of Dharma, while Ananjai rushed against the angry throngs of the Samsaktakas. In that slaughter of great heroes, Drishthadama proceeded against Kripa. The invincible Shikandi closed with Kritavama. Srutakirti encountered Sholya, and Madri's son, the valiant Sahadeva, O king, encountered thy son Dushasana. The two Kayakaya princes, in that battle, shrouded Satyaki with a shower of blazing arrows, and the latter also, O Bharata, shrouded the two Kayakaya brothers. Those two heroic brothers deeply struck Satyaki in the chest like two elephants striking with their tusks a hostile compere in the forest. Indeed, O king, those two brothers, in that battle, their own vitals pierced with shafts, pierced Satyaki of true deeds with their shafts. Satyaki, however, O great king, covering all the points of the compass with a shower of arrows and smiling the while, checked the two brothers, O Bharata. Checked by those showers of arrows shot by the grandson of Suni, the two brothers speedily shrouded the car of Sini's grandson with their shafts. Cutting off their beautiful bows, Sorin of great fame checked them both with his keen arrows in that battle. Taking up 2 other beautiful bows, and a number of powerful shafts, the two began to cover Satyaki and Korea with great activity and skill. Shot by the two brothers, those mighty shafts equipped with the feathers of the canker and the peacock and decked with gold, began to fall, illumining all the points of the compass. In that dreadful battle between them, O king, the arrows they shot caused a darkness there. Those mighty Ka warriors then cut off each other's bows. Then the invincible Satwata, O king, filled with rage, shook up another bow in that battle, and stringing it, cut off Anuvinder's head with a keen razor-headed shaft. Decked with earrings, that large head, O king, fell like the head of Samvaro slain in the great battle of old. And it reached the earth in no time, filling all the Kayakayas with grief. Beholding that brave warrior slain, his brother, the mighty Ka warrior Vinder, stringing another bow, began to resist the grandson of Sini from every side. Piercing with 60 arrows equipped with wings of gold and whetted on stone, he uttered a loud shout and said, "Wait, wait." Then that mighty Ka warrior of the Kayakayas speedily struck Satyaki with many thousands of shafts in his arms and chest. All his limbs wounded with arrows, Satyaki, of prowess incapable of being baffled, looked resplendent in that battle, O king, like a flowering kinsuka. Pierced by the high-souled Kayakaya in that encounter, Satyaki, with the greatest ease, pierced the Kayakaya, in return, with 25 arrows. Then those 2 foremost of Ka warriors, having each cut off the other's handsome bow in that encounter, and having each quickly slain the other's driver and steeds, approached each other on foot for a fight with swords. Both endued with massive arms, they looked resplendent on that extensive arena, each having taken up a shield decked with 100 moons, and each armed with an excellent sword, like Jamba and Sakra, both endued with great might, in the battle between the gods and the Asuras of old. Both of them, in that great battle, then began to career in circles. And then they speedily encountered each other in battle, each approaching the other near. And each of them made great efforts for the destruction of the other. Then Satwata cut in twain the shield of Kakya. The latter also, O king, cut in twain the shield of Satyaki. Having cut off his antagonist's shield covered with centuries of stars, Kakya began to career in circles, advancing and receding, at times. Then the grandson of Sini, endued with great activity, cut off by a side stroke the prince of the Kakyas, thus careering in that great arena armed with excellent sword. Cased in armor that great bowman, viz., the Kakya prince, O king, thus cut off in twain in that great battle, fell down like a hill riven with thunder. Having slain him in battle that foremost of Ka warriors, that scorcher of foes, viz., the brave grandson of Sini, quickly got upon the car of Yadamanu. Afterwards, riding upon another car duly equipped with everything, Satyaki began to slay with his shafts the large force of the Kakyas. The vast army of the Kakyas, thus slaughtered in battle, leaving that foe of theirs fled away on all sides. 14. Sanjaya said, Saruta calming then, O king, filled with wrath, struck that lord of earth, viz., Citrusana, in that battle, with 50 shafts. The ruler of the Abhysas, in return, striking Srutakarman, O king, with 9 straight arrows, pierced his driver with 5. Srutakarman then, filled with rage, struck Citrusana at the head of his forces, with a keen arrow in a vital part. Deeply pierced, O monarch, with that arrow by that high-souled prince, the heroic Citrusana felt great pain and swooned away. During this interval, Srutakarman of great renown covered that lord of earth, viz., his insensible antagonist, with 90 arrows. The mighty Ka warrior Citrusana then, recovering consciousness, cut off his antagonist's bow with a broad-headed arrow, and pierced his antagonist himself with 7 arrows. Taking up another bow that was decked with gold, and capable of striking hard, Sarutakarman then, with his waves of arrows, made Citrusina assume a wonderful appearance. Adorned with those arrows, the youthful king, wearing beautiful garlands, looked in that battle like a well-adorned youth in the midst of an assembly. Quickly piercing Sarutakarman with an arrow in the center of the chest, he said unto him, "Wait, wait." Sarutakarman also, pierced with that arrow in the battle, began to shed blood, like a mountain shedding streams of liquid red chalk. Bathed in blood and died therewith, that hero shone in battle like a flowering kintsuka. Sarutakarman, then, O king, thus assailed by the foe, became filled with rage, and cut in twain the foe-resisting bow of Citrusina. The latter's bow having been cut off, Sarutakarman then, O king, pierced him with 300 arrows equipped with goodly wings, covering him completely therewith. With another broad-headed arrow, sharp-edged and keen-pointed, he cut off the head, decked with headgear of his high-souled antagonist. That blazing head of Citrusina fell down on the ground, like the moon loosened from the firmament upon the earth at will. Beholding the king slain, the troops of Citrusina, O sire, rushed impetuously against his slayer. That great bowman then, filled with rage, rushed, shooting his shafts, against that army, like armor filled with fury, against all creatures at the time of the universal dissolution. Slaughtered in that battle by thy grants and armed with a bow, they quickly fled on all sides like elephants scorched by a forest conflagration. Beholding them flying away, hopeless of vanquishing the foe, Sarutakarman, pursuing them with his keen arrows, looked exceedingly resplendent on his car. Then Prativindaya, piercing Citra with 5 arrows, struck his driver with 3 and his standard with 1. Him Citra pierced, striking in the arms and the chest, with 9 broad-headed shafts equipped with wings of gold, having keen points, and plumed with canker and peacock feathers. Then Prativindaya, O Bharata, cutting off with his shafts the bow of his antagonist deeply, struck the latter with 5 keen arrows. Then Citra, O monarch, sped at thy grants and a terrible and irresistible dart, adorned with golden bells, and resembling a flame of fire. Prativindaya, however, in that battle, cut off, with the greatest ease, into 3 fragments, that dart as it coursed towards him like a flashing meteor. Cut off into 3 fragments, with Prativindaya's shafts, that dart fell down, like the thunderbolt, inspiring all creatures with fear at the end of the yuga. Beholding that dart baffled, Citra, taking up her huge mace decked with a network of gold, hurled it at Prativindaya. That mace slew the latter's steeds and driver also in that great battle, and crushing, besides, his car, fell with great impetuosity on the earth. Meanwhile, having alighted from his car, O Bharata, Prativindaya hurled at Citra a dart, well adorned and equipped with a golden staff. Catching it as it coursed towards him, the high-souled king Citra, O Bharata, hurled the very weapon at Prativindaya. Striking the brave Prativindaya in that battle, that blazing dart, piercing through his right arm, fell down on the earth, and falling illumined the whole region like a blast of lightning. Then Prativindaya, O king, filled with rage, and desiring to compass the destruction of Citra, sped at him a lance decked with gold. That lance penetrating through his armor and chest, entered the earth like a mighty snake in its hole. Struck with that lance, the king fell down, stretching out his large and massive arms that resembled a couple of iron clubs. Beholding Citra slain, thy warriors, those ornaments of battle, rushed impetuously at Prativindaya from all sides. Shooting diverse kinds of shafts and satagnis decked with rows of bells, they soon covered Prativandaya like masses of clouds covering the Sunday. The mighty armed Prativandaya, consuming with his arrowy showers those assailants of his in that battle, routed thy army like the thunder-wielding Sakra routing the Asura host. Thus slaughtered in battle by the Pandavas, thy troops, O king, suddenly dispersed in all directions like congregated masses of clouds dispersed by the wind, while thy army, slaughtered on all sides, was thus flying away. Only Drona's son singly rushed with speed against the mighty Bhimasena. All at once a fierce encounter ensued between them, like to what has taken place between Vritra and Vasava in the battle between the gods and the Asuras of old. 15. Sanjaya said, endued with the greatest activity, Drona's son, O king, displaying the lightness of his arms, pierced Bhima with an arrow, aiming at all his vital points, for he had knowledge of all the vital points of the body. The quick-handed Ashvatthama again struck him with 90 shafts. Pierced all over with keen arrows by the son of Drona, Bhimasena looked resplendent in that battle like the sun himself with his rays. The son of Pandu then, covering the son of Drona with a 1,000 well-directed shafts, uttered a leonine roar. Baffling with his own shafts the shafts of his foe in that battle, the son of Drona, O king, as if smiling, then struck the Pandava on the forehead with a cloth-yard shaft. The son of Pandu bore that arrow on his forehead, even as the proud rhinoceros, O king, in the forest bears its horn. The valiant Bhima, then, in that battle, as if smiling all the while, struck the struggling son of Drona on the forehead with 3 cloth-yard shafts. With those 3 arrows sticking on his forehead, that Brahmana looked beautiful like a 3-peaked mountain washed with water in the season of rains. The son of Drona then afflicted the Pandava with hundreds of arrows, but failed to shake him like the wind failing to shake the mountain. Similarly, the son of Pandu, filled with joy, could not in that battle shake the son of Drona with his hundreds of keen shafts like torrents of rain failing to shake a mountain. Shrouding each other with showers of terrible shafts, those 2 great Ka warriors, those 2 heroes, endued with fierce might, shone resplendent on those 2 foremost of Kas of theirs. Then they looked like 2 blazing suns risen for the destruction of the world, and engaged themselves in scorching each other with the rays representing excellent arrows, endeavoring with great care to counteract each other's feats in the great battle, and actually engaged in much indeed by deed with showers of arrows most fearlessly. Those 2 foremost of men careered in that combat like a couple of tigers. Both invincible and terrible, arrows constituted their fangs and bows their mouths. They became invisible under those clouds of arrows on all sides like the sun and the moon in the firmament shrouded by masses of clouds. And then those 2 chastisers of foes soon became visible and blazed forth like Mars and Mercury freed from cloudy screens. Then at that instant during the progress of that awful battle, Drona's son, placing Vrikadara to his right, poured hundreds of the fierce arrows upon him like the clouds pouring torrents of rain upon a mountain. Bhima, however, could not brook that indication of his enemy's triumphs. The son of Pandu, O king, from that very station on Ashvatthama's right, began to counteract the latter's feats. Their cars continuing to wheel around in diverse ways and advance and retreat, according to the exigencies of the situation. The battle between those 2 lions among men became exceedingly furious, careering in diverse paths, and, executing circular maneuvers, they continued to strike each other with arrows shot from their bows drawn to their fullest stretch, and each made the greatest endeavours to compass the destruction of the other, and each of them desired to make the other carless in that battle. Then that Ka warrior, viz., the son of Drona, invoked many mighty weapons. The son of Pandu, however, in that battle, with his own weapons, counteracted all those weapons of his foe. Then, O monarch, that took place an awful encounter of weapons, like to the terrible encounter of planets at the time of the universal dissolution. Those shafts, O Bharata, let off by them, coming in collision, illuminated all the points of the compass and thy troops also all around. Covered with flights of arrows, the welkin assumed a terrible sight, like to what happens, O king, at the time of the universal dissolution, when it is covered with falling meteors. From the clash of shafts, O Bharata, fire was generated there with sparks and blazing flames. That fire began to consume both armies. Siddhas, moving there, O monarch, said these words, O Lord, this battle is the foremost of all battles. Any battle, fought before, does not come up to even a 16th part of this. A battle like this will never occur again. Both these persons, viz., this Brahmana and this Kshatriya, are endued with knowledge. Both are possessed of courage, and both are fierce in prowess. Dreadful is the might of Bhima, and wonderful is the skill of the other in weapons. How great is their energy, and how wonderful the skill possessed by both. Both of them stand in this battle like two universe-destroying Yamas at the end of the Yuga. They are born like two Rudras or like two suns. These two tigers among men, both endued with terrible forms, are like two Yamas in this battle. Such were the words of the Siddhas heard there every moment. And among the assembled denizens of heaven there arose a leonine roar. Beholding the amazing and inconceivable feats of the two warriors in that battle, the dense throngs of Siddhas and Charanas were filled with wonder. And the gods, the Siddhas, and the great Rishis applauded them both, saying, Excellent, O mighty armed son of Drona! Excellent, O Bhima! Meanwhile those two heroes, in that battle, O king, having done injuries to each other, glared at each other with eyes rolling in rage. With eyes red in rage, their lips also quivered in rage. And they grinded their teeth in wrath and bit their lips. And those two great warriors covered each other with showers of arrows, as if they were in that battle two masses of clouds that poured torrents of arrows for rain and that gleamed with weapons constituting their lightning. Having pierced each other's standards and drivers in that great battle, and having also pierced each other's steeds, they continued to strike each other. Then, O monarch, filled with rage, they took up in that dreadful encounter 2 arrows, and each desirous of slaying the other shot quickly at his foe. Those 2 blazing arrows, resistless and endued with the force of thunder, coming, O king, to the 2 warriors as they stood at the head of their respective divisions, struck them both. Each of the 2 mighty combatants then deeply struck with those arrows, sank on the terrace of their respective car. Understanding the son of Drona to be insensible, his driver then bore him away from the battlefield, O king, in the sight of all the troops. Similarly, O king, Bhima's driver bore away from the battlefield on his car the son of Pandu, that scorcher of foes, who was repeatedly falling into a swoon. 16. Dhritarashtra said, Describe to me the battle of Arjuna with the Samsaptakas, and of the other kings with the Pandavas. Narrate to me also, O Sanjaya, the battle of Arjuna with Ashvatthama, and of the other lords of the earth with Partha. Sanjaya said, Listen, O king, as I speak to thee as to how occurred the battle of the heroic warriors, on our side, with the foe, the battle which was destructive of bodies, sins, and lives. That slayer of foes, viz., Partha, penetrating into the Samsaptaka force that resembled the ocean, agitated it exceedingly, like a tempest agitating the vast deep. Cutting off with broad-headed arrows of keen edges the heads of brave warriors that were decked with faces possessed of the splendor of the full moon and with beautiful eyes and eyebrows and teeth, Dhananjaya speedily caused the earth to be strewn there as if with lotuses, plucked of their stalks. And in that battle Arjuna with his razor-headed shafts, cut off the arms of his foes, that were all well-rounded, large and massive, and smeared with sandal paste and other perfumes, with weapons in grasp, with leathern gloves casing their fingers, and looking like 5-headed snakes. And the son of Pandu repeatedly cut off with his broad-headed shafts, steeds, riders, drivers, and flags, and bows and arrows, and arms decked with gems. And Arjuna in that battle, O king, with many thousands of arrows, dispatched to Yama's abode, cow warriors and elephants and horses and horsemen. Many foremost of warriors, filled with rage and roaring like bulls mad, like them, with excitement for a cow in season, rushed towards Arjuna, with loud cries. All of them then began to strike Arjuna with their arrows as the latter was employed in slaying them, like infuriate bulls striking one of their species with their horns. The battle that took place between him and them made the hair to stand on end, even like the battle between the Daityas and the wielder of the thunderbolt on the occasion of the conquest of the 3 worlds. Resisting with his own weapons the weapons of his foes on all sides, Arjuna, piercing them fast with innumerable arrows, took their lives. Like the wind destroying vast masses of clouds, Arjuna, otherwise called Jaya, that enhancer of the fears of his foes, cutting off into minute fragments large throngs of cars, that is, whose poles, wheels, and axles had previously been shattered by him, and whose warriors and steeds and drivers had been slain before, and whose weapons and quivers had been displaced, and standards crushed, and traces and reins sundered, and wooden fences and shafts broken already, and filling everybody with wonder, achieved feats magnificent to behold and rivaling those of 1,000 great car warriors fighting together. Crowds of siddhas and celestial rishis and churanas all applauded him, and celestial kettle drums sounded, and floral showers fell upon the heads of Keshava and Arjuna. And an incorporeal voice said, "These viz. Keshava and Arjuna, are those 2 heroes that always possess the beauty of the moon, the splendor of fire, the force of the wind and the radiance of the sun. Stationed on the same car, these 2 heroes are invincible, even like Brahman and Isana. These 2 heroes, the foremost of all creatures, are Nara and Narayana." Hearing and beholding these wonderful things, O Bharata, Ashvatthama, with great care and resolution, rushed against Krishna and Arjuna in that battle. With his arm that held an arrow in its grasp, the son of Drona hailed the Pandava, shooting shafts equipped with foe-slaying heads, and smilingly told him these words, "If, O hero, thou regardest me a worthy guest arrived before thee, then give me today, with the whole heart, the hospitality of battle." Thus summoned by the preceptor's son from desire of battle, Arjuna regarded himself highly honored, and addressing Janardana said, "The Samsaptakas should be slain by me, but Drona's son again is summoning me. Tell me, O Madhava, to which of these duties should I first turn? First let the services of hospitality be offered, if thou thinkest that to be proper." Thus addressed, Krishna bore Partha, who had been summoned according to the rules of triumphant challenge, to the vicinity of Drona's son, like Vayu bearing Indra to the sacrifice. Saluting Drona's son, whose mind was fixed upon one thing, Keshava said unto him, "O Ashvatthama, be cool, and without losing a moment strike and bear. The time has come for those that are dependent on others to repay their obligation to their masters. The disputes between Brahmanas are subtle. The consequences, however, of the disputes of Kshatriyas are palpable, being either victory or defeat. For obtaining those excellent rights of hospitality that from folly thou solicitest at the hands of Partha, fight coolly now with the son of Pandu." Thus addressed by Vasudeva, that foremost of regenerate ones, replied saying, "So be it." Pierced Keshava with 60 shafts and Arjuna with 3. Arjuna then, filled with rage, cut off Ashvatthama's bow with 3 shafts. Drona's son took up another bow that was still more formidable. Stringing it within the twinkling of an eye, he pierced Arjuna and Keshava, the latter with 300 arrows, and the former with the 1,000. And then Drona's son, with good care, stupefying Arjuna in that battle, shot thousands and tens of thousands and millions of arrows. From the quivers, the bow, the bowstring, the fingers, the arms, the hands, the chest, the face, the nose, the eyes, the ears, the heads, the limbs, the paws of the body, the armor on his person, the car, and the standard, O sire, of that Etra of Brahma, arrows began to issue, piercing Madhava and the son of Pandu with a thick arrowy shower. Drona's son, filled with joy, roared aloud like a vast mass of congregated clouds. Hearing that roar of his, the son of Pandu said unto Keshava of unfading glory these words, Behold, O Madhava, this wickedness towards me of the preceptor's son. He regardeth us to be slain, having shrouded us with his dense arrowy shower. I will presently, however, by my training and might, baffle his purpose, cutting off every one of those arrows shot by Ashvatthama into 3 fragments. That foremost one of Bharata's race destroyed the more like the sun destroying a thick fog. After this the son of Pandu once more pierced with his fierce shafts the Samsaptakas with their steeds, drivers, cars, elephants, standards and foot soldiers. Every one of those that stood there as spectators, every one of those that were stationed there on foot or car or steed or elephant, regarded himself as shrouded by the arrows of Arjuna. Shot from Gandiva, those winged arrows of diverse forms slew in that battle elephants and steeds and men, whether stationed in his immediate front or at the distance of 2 miles. The trunks, cut off with broad-headed shafts, of elephants, down whose cheeks and other limbs flowed the juice indicative of excitement, fell down like tall trees in the forest struck down with the axe. A little after down fell elephants, huge as hillocks, with their riders, like mountains crushed by Indra with his thunder. With his shafts cutting into minute portions well-equipped cars that looked like dissolving edifices of vapor in the evening sky, and into which were yoked well-trained steeds of great speed and which were ridden by warriors invincible in battle. The son of Pandu continued to shower his arrows on his enemies, and Dhananjaya continued to slay well-decked horsemen and foot soldiers of the foe. Indeed, Dhananjaya, resembling the very sun as he rises at the end of the Yuga, dried up the Samsaptaka ocean, incapable of being dried up easily, by means of keen arrows constituting his rays. Without losing a moment, the son of Pandu once more pierced Drona's son, resembling a huge hill, with shafts of great impetuosity and the splendor of the sun, like the wielder of the thunderbolt piercing a mountain with the thunder. Desirous of battle, the preceptor's son then, filled with rage, approached Arjuna for piercing him and his steeds and drivers by means of his swiftly coursing shafts. Arjuna, however, quickly cut off the shafts shot at him by Ashvatthama. The son of Pandu then, filled with great wrath, proffered unto Ashvatthama, that desirable guest, quivers upon quivers of arrows, like a charitable person offering everything in his house unto a guest. Leaving the Samsaptakas, then the son of Pandu rushed towards Drona's son like a donor abandoning unworthy guests, for proceeding towards one that is worthy. 17. Sanjaya said, Then occurred that battle between Arjuna and Ashvatthama, resembling the planets Shukra and Brihaspati in splendor, like the battle between Shukra and Brihaspati in the firmament for entering the same constellation, afflicting each other with blazing shafts that constituted the rays. Those terrifiers of the world stood like 2 planets, both deviating from their orbits. Then Arjuna deeply pierced Ashvatthama with a shaft in the midst of his eyebrows. With that shaft the son of Drona looked resplendent like the sun with upward rays. The 2 Krishnas, Nara and Narayana, also deeply afflicted by Ashvatthama with hundreds of arrows, looked like two suns at the end of the yuga, resplendent with their own rays. Then, when Vasudeva seemed to be stupefied, Arjuna shot a weapon from which issued torrents of shafts on all sides. And he struck the son of Drona with innumerable shafts, each resembling the thunder or fire or the scepter of death. Endued with mighty energy, that achiever of fierce feats, Ashvatthama, then pierced both Keshava and Arjuna with well-shot shafts which were inspired with great impetuosity and struck with which death himself would feel pain. Checking the shafts of Drona's son, Arjuna covered him with twice as many arrows equipped with goodly wings, and shrouding that foremost of heroes and his steeds and driver and standard, began to strike the Samsaptakas. With his well-shot shafts Partha began to cut off the bows and quivers and bowstrings and hands and arms and tightly grasped weapons and umbrellas and standards and steeds and car shafts and robes and floral garlands and ornaments and coats of mail and handsome shields and beautiful heads, in large numbers, of his unretreating foes. Well-equipped cars and steeds and elephants, ridden by heroes fighting with great care, were destroyed by the hundreds of shafts sped by Partha and fell down along with the heroes that rode on them. Cut off with broad-headed and crescent-shaped and razor-faced arrows, human heads, resembling the lotus, the sun, or the full moon in beauty and resplendent with diadems and necklaces and crowns, dropped ceaselessly on the earth. Then the Kalinga, the Vanga, and the Nishada heroes, riding on elephants, that resembled in splendor the elephant of the great foe of the Daityas, rushed with speed against the queller of the pride of the Danavas, the son of Pandu, from desire of slaying him. Partha cut off the vital limbs, the trunks, the riders, the standards, and the banners of those elephants, upon which those beasts fell down like mountain summits riven with thunder. When that elephant force was broken, the diadem-decked Arjuna shrouded the son of his preceptor with shafts endued with the splendor of the newly risen sun, like the wind shrouding the risen sun with masses of congregated clouds. Checking with his own shafts those of Arjuna, Drona's son shrouding both Arjuna and Vasudeva with his arrows, gave a loud roar, like a mass of clouds at the close of summer after shrouding the sun or the moon in the firmament. Deeply afflicted with those arrows, Arjuna, aiming his weapons at Ashvatthama and at those followers of his belonging to the army, speedily dispelled that darkness caused by Ashvatthama's arrows, and pierced all of them with shafts equipped with goodly wings. In that battle none could see when save the Arsasi took up his shafts, when he aimed them, and when he let them off. All that could be seen was that elephants and steeds and foot soldiers and car warriors, struck with his arrows, fell down deprived of life. Then Drona's son, without losing a moment, aiming 10 foremost of arrows, sped them quickly as if they formed only one arrow. Shot with great force, 5 of these pierced Arjuna and the other 5 pierced Vasudeva. Struck with those arrows, those 2 foremost of men, like Kuvara and Indra, became bathed in blood. Thus afflicted, all the people there regarded those 2 heroes as slain by Ashvatthama, the warrior who had completely mastered the science of arms. Then the chief of the Dasahas addressed Arjuna and said, "Why errest thou in thus sparing Ashvatthama? Slay this warrior. If treated with indifference, even this one will be the cause of great woe, like a disease not sought to be put down by treatment." Replying unto Keshava of unfading glory with the words, "So be it," Arjuna of unclouded understanding began with good care to mangle the son of Drona with his shafts. Now the son of Pandu, filled with rage, quickly pierced the massive arms, smeared with sandal paste, and the chest, the head, and the unrivaled thighs of his antagonist with shafts equipped with heads like goat's ears, and shot with great force from Gandiva. Then cutting off the traces of Ashvatthama's steeds, Arjuna began to pierce the steeds themselves, whereat the latter bore Ashvatthama away to a great distance from the field. Thus borne away by these steeds endued with the speed of the wind, the intelligent son of Drona, deeply afflicted with the shafts of Partha, reflecting for some time, wished not to go back and renew the fight with Partha. Knowing that victory is ever with the chief of the Vrishnis and with Dhananjaya, that foremost one of Vangirasa's race, endued with great activity, entered the army of Karna, deprived of hope and with shafts and weapons almost exhausted. Indeed, Drona's son, restraining his steeds, and having comforted himself a little, O sire, entered the force of Karna, teeming with cars and steeds and men. After Ashvatthama, that enemy of theirs, had been thus removed from the field by his steeds like a disease removed from the body by incantations and medicines and means, Keshava and Arjuna proceeded towards the Samsaptakas, on their car whose rattle resembled the roar of the clouds and whose banner waved on the wind. 18. Sanjaya said, meanwhile towards the northern part of the Pandava army, a loud uproar arose of cars and elephants and steeds and foot soldiers as those were being massacred by Dandadhara. Turning the course of the car, but without stopping the steeds which were as fleet as Garuda or the wind, Keshava, addressing Arjuna, said, the chief of the Magadhas, with his foe-crushing elephant is unrivaled in prowess. In training and might he is not inferior to Bhagadatta himself. Having slain him first, thou wilt then slay their Samsaptakas. At the conclusion of his words, Keshava bore Partha to the presence of Dandadhara, the chief of the Magadhas, peerless in handling the elephant hook even as the headless planet Ketu is peerless among all the planets, was destroying the hostile army like a fierce comet destroying the whole earth. Riding on his foe-slaying and well-equipped elephant which looked like the Daniva with elephantine face and form, and whose roar resembled that of a congregated mass of clouds, Dandadhara was destroying with his shafts thousands of cars and steeds and elephants and men. The elephants also, treading upon cars with their feet, pressed down into the earth a large number of men with their steeds and drivers. Many were the elephants, also, which that foremost of elephants crushed and slew with his 2 forefeet and trunk. Indeed, the beast moved like the wheel of death, slaying men adorned with steel coats of mail, along with their horses and foot soldiers. The chief of the Magadhas caused these to be pressed down into the earth, like thick reeds pressed down with crackling sounds, by means of that mighty and foremost of elephants belonging to him. Then Arjuna, riding on that foremost of cars, rushed quickly towards that prince of elephants in the midst of that host teeming with thousands of cars and steeds and elephants, and resounding with the beaten blare of innumerable cymbals and drums and conchs, and uproarious with the clatter of car wheels, the twang of bowstrings, and the sound of palms. Even Dandadhara pierced Arjuna with 12 foremost of shafts, and Janardana with 16, and each of the steeds with 3, and then uttered a loud shout and laughed repeatedly. Then Partha, with a number of broad-headed shafts, cut off the bow of his antagonist with its string and arrow fixed thereon, as also his well-decked standard, and then the guides of his beast and the footmen that protected the animal. At this, the lord of Girivara became filled with rage, desirous of agitating Janardana with that tusker of his, whose temples had split from excitement, and which resembled a mass of clouds and was endued with the speed of the wind. Dandadhara struck Dhananjaya with many lances. The son of Pandu then, with 3 razor-headed arrows, cut off, almost at the same instant of time, the 2 arms each looking like the trunk of an elephant, and then the head, resembling the full moon, of his foe. Then Arjuna struck the elephant of this antagonist with hundreds of arrows, covered with the gold-decked arrows of Partha. That elephant equipped with golden armor looked as resplendent as a mountain in the night with its herbs and trees blazing in a conflagration. afflicted with the pain and roaring like a mass of clouds, and exceedingly weakened, the elephant crying and wandering and running with tottering steps, fell down with the guide on its neck, like a mountain summit driven by thunder. Upon the fall of his brother in battle, Danda advanced against Indra's younger brother and Dhananjaya, desirous of slaying them, on his tusker white as snow and adorned with gold and looking like a Himalayan summit. Danda struck Janardana with 3 whetted lances bright as the rays of the sun, and Arjuna with 5, and uttered a loud shout. The son of Pandu then uttering a loud shout cut off the 2 arms of Danda. Cut off by means of razor-headed shafts, those 2 arms, smeared with sandal paste, adorned with angadas, and with lances in grasp, as they fell from the elephant's back at the same instant of time, looked resplendent like a couple of large snakes of great beauty falling down from a mountain summit. Cut off with a crescent-shaped arrow by the diadem-decked Patha, the head also of Danda fell down on the earth from the elephant's back, and covered with blood it looked resplendent as it lay like the sun dropped from the Aster mountain towards the western quarter. Then Partha pierced with many excellent arrows bright as the rays of the sun that elephant of his foe, resembling a mass of white clouds, whereupon it fell down with a noise like a Himalayan summit driven with thunder. Then other huge elephants capable of winning victory and resembling the 2 already slain, were cut off by Asi, in that battle, even as the 2, belonging to Danda and Dandadara, had been cut off. At this the vast hostile force broke. Then elephants and cars and steeds and men, in dense throngs, clashed against one another and fell down on the field. Tottering, they violently struck one another and fell down deprived of life. Then his soldiers, encompassing Arjuna like the celestials encompassing Purandara, began to say, "O hero, that foe of whom we had been frightened like creatures at the sight of death himself, hath by good luck been slain by thee. If thou hadst not protected from that fear those people that were so deeply afflicted by mighty foes, then by this time our foes would have felt that delight which we now feel at their death, O slayer of enemies." Hearing these and other words uttered by friends and allies, Arjuna, with a cheerful heart, worshipped those men, each according to his deserts, and proceeded once more against the Samsaptakas. 19. Sanjaya said, wheeling round, like the planet Mercury in the curvature of its orbit, Jaishu, Arjuna, once more slew large number of the Samsaptakas. Afflicted with the shafts of Patha, O king, men, steeds, and elephants, O Bharata, wavered and wandered and lost colour and fell down and died. Many foremost of animals tied to yokes and drivers and standards, and bows, and shafts and hands and weapons in grasp, and arms, and heads, of heroic foes fighting with him, the son of Pandu cut off in that battle, with arrows, some of which were broad-headed, some equipped with heads like razors, some crescent-shaped, and some furnished with heads like the calf's tooth. Like bulls fighting with a bull for the sake of the cow in season, brave warriors by hundreds and thousands closed upon Arjuna. The battle that took place between them and him made the hair to stand on end like the encounter between the deities and Indra, the wielder of the thunderbolt on the occasion of the conquest of the 3 worlds. Then the son of Ugrayuda pierced Patha with 3 shafts resembling 3 venomous snakes. Patha, however, cut off from his enemy's trunk the latter's head. Then those warriors, filled with rage, covered Arjuna from every side with diverse kinds of weapons like the clouds urged by the Maruts shrouding him of it at the close of summer. Checking with his own weapons those of his foes on every side, Arjuna slew a large number of his enemies with well-shot shafts. With his arrows Arjuna then cut off the Trivanus, the steeds, the drivers, and the Parshani drivers of many cars, and displaced the weapons and quivers of many, and deprived many of their wheels and standards, and broke the cords, the traces and the axles of many, and destroyed the bottoms and yokes of others, and caused all the equipment of many to fall from their places. Those cars, thus smashed and injured by Arjuna in large numbers, looked like the luxurious mansions of the rich destroyed by fire, wind, and rain. Elephants, their vitals pierced with shafts resembling thunderbolts in impetuosity, fell down like mansions on mountain tops overthrown by blasts of lightning. Large numbers of steeds with their riders, struck by Arjuna, fell down on the earth, their tongues and entrails pressed out, themselves deprived of strength and bathed in blood, and presenting an awful sight. Men and steeds and elephants, pierced by Savyasasi, Arjuna, with his shafts, wondered and tottered and fell down and uttered cries of pain and looked pale, O sire. Like Mahendra smiting down the Danavas, Partha smote down large numbers of his foes, by means of shafts whetted on stone and resembling the thunder of poison in deadliness. Brave warriors, cased in costly coats of mail and decked with ornaments and armed with divers kinds of weapons, lay on the field, with their cars and standards, slain by Partha. Vanquished, and deprived of life, persons of righteous deeds, possessed of noble birth and great knowledge, proceeded to heaven in consequence of those glorious deeds of theirs while their bodies only lay on earth. Then the chief, belonging to thy army, of various realms, filled with wrath and accompanied by their followers, rushed against Arjuna, that foremost of car warriors. Warriors borne on their cars and steeds and elephants, and foot soldiers also, all desirous of slaying Arjuna, rushed towards him, shooting diverse weapons with great speed. Then Arjuna like wind, by means of keen shafts, destroyed that thick shower of weapons dropped by those warriors constituting a mass of congregated clouds. People then beheld Arjuna crossing that raftless ocean constituted by steeds and foot soldiers and elephants and cars, and having mighty weapons for its waves, on a bridge constituted by his own mighty weapons of offense and defense. Then Vasudeva, addressing Partha, said, Why, O sinless one, dost thou sport in this way? Grinding these Samsaptakas, haste thyself Bakana's slaughter. Saying, So be it unto Krishna. Arjuna then, forcibly smiting the remnant of the Samsaptakas with his weapons, began to destroy them like Indra destroying the Daityas. At that time, with even the closest attention, men could not mark when Arjuna took out his shafts, when he aimed them and when he let them off quickly. Govinda himself, O Bharata, regarded it wonderful. Like swans diving into a lake, the shafts of Arjuna, white and active as swans, penetrated into the hostile force. Then Govinda, beholding the field of battle during the progress of that carnage, said these words to Savyasasi, Hear, O Partha, for the sake of Duryodhana alone, occurreth this great and a terrible destruction of the Bharatas and other kings of earth. Behold, O son of Bharata, these bows, with golden backs, of many mighty bowmen, and these girdles and quivers loosened from their bodies. Behold these straight shafts equipped with wings of gold, and these long arrows washed with oil and looking like snakes freed from their sloughs. Behold these beautiful lances decked with gold lying scattered about, and these coats of mail, O Bharata, adorned with golden fallen off from the bodies of the warriors. Behold these spears embellished with gold, these darts adorned with the same metal, and these huge maces twined round with threads of gold, and cords of hemp. Behold these swords decked with bright gold, and these axes adorned with the same, and these battle axes equipped with gold-decked handles. Behold also these spiked clubs, these short arrows, these buzundis, and these canapas, these iron-cutters lying around, and these heavy mushhalers. These victory-longing warriors endued with great activity and armed with diverse weapons, though dead, still seemed to be quick with life. Behold those thousands of warriors, their limbs crushed with maces, and heads split with mesh-halers or smashed and trod by elephants and steeds and cars. O slayer of foes, the field of battle is strewn with the bodies of men and elephants and steeds, deprived of life, dreadfully mangled with shafts and darts and swords and lances and scimitars and axes and spears and nakaras and bludgeons, and bathed in streams of blood. Strewn with arms smeared with sandal paste and decked with angadas and graced with auspicious indications and cased in leathern fences and adorned with kiras, the earth looks resplendent, O Bharata. Strewn also with hands having fingers cased in fences, decked with ornaments, and lopped off from arms, and with severed thighs looking like the trunks of elephants, of heroes endued with great activity and with heads adorned with earrings and headgears set with gems, the earth looks exceedingly beautiful. Behold those beautiful cars, decked with golden bells, broken in diverse ways. Behold those numerous steeds bathed in blood, those bottoms of cars and long quivers, and diverse kinds of standards and banners, and those huge conchs of the combatants, and those yak tails perfectly white, and those elephants with tongues lolling out and lying on the field like hills, and those beautiful with triumphal banners, and those slain elephant warriors, and those rich coverlets, each consisting of one piece of blanket, for the backs of those huge beasts, and those beautiful and variegated and torn blankets, and those numerous bells loosened from the bodies of elephants and broken into fragments by those falling creatures, and those hooks with handles set with stones of lapis lazuli fallen upon the earth, and those ornamental yokes of steeds, and those armors set with diamonds for their breasts, and those rich cloths, adorned with golden tied to the ends of the standards borne by horsemen, and those variegated coverlets and housings and rancuskins, set with brilliant gems and inlaid with gold, for the backs of steeds and fallen on the ground, and those large diamonds adorning the headgears of kings, and those beautiful necklaces of gold, and those umbrellas displaced from their positions, and those yak tails and fans. Behold the earth strewn with faces adorned with earrings bright as the moon or stars, and embellished with well-cut beards, and each looking like the full moon. The earth, strewn with those faces looking like lilies and lotuses, resembles a lake adorned with a dense assemblage of lilies and lotuses. Behold, the earth possessing the effulgence of the bright moon and diversified as if with myriads of stars, looks like the autumnal firmament bespangled with stellar lights. O Arjuna, these feats that have been achieved by thee in great battle today are, indeed, worthy of thee or of the chief of the celestials himself in heaven. Even thus did Krishna show the field of battle unto Arjuna. And while returning from the field to their camp, they heard a loud noise in the army of Duryodhana. Indeed, the uproar that was heard consisted of the blare of conchs and the beat of cymbals and drums and petahus and the clatter of car wheels, the neighing of steeds, the grunt of elephants, and the fierce clash of weapons. Penetrating into that force by the aid of his steeds possessing the fleetness of the wind, Krishna became filled with wonder upon beholding the army grinded by Pandu, like Yama himself slaying creatures whose lives have run out. Pandya, that foremost of warriors skilled in shafts and weapons, was destroying crowds of foes by means of diverse kinds of shafts, piercing the bodies of the elephants and steeds and men with sharp shafts. That foremost of smiters overthrew and deprived them of life, cutting off with his own shafts the diverse weapons hurled at him by many foremost of foes. Pandya slew his enemies like Sakra, Indra, destroying the Danavas. 20. Dhritarashtra said, Thou didst mention to me before the name of Pandya, that hero of worldwide celebrity, but his feats, O Sanjaya, in battle have never been narrated by thee. Tell me today in detail of the prowess of that great hero, his skill, spirit, and energy, the measure of his might, and his pride. Sanjaya said, Bhishma and Drona and Kripa and Drona's son and Karna and Arjuna and Janardana, those thorough masters of the science of weapons, are regarded by thee as the foremost of Ka warriors. Know, however, that Pandya regarded himself superior to all these foremost of Ka warriors in energy. Indeed, he never regarded anyone amongst the kings as equal to himself. He never admitted his equality with Karna and Bhishma, nor did he admit within his heart that he was inferior in any respect to Vasudeva or Arjuna. Even such was Pandya, that foremost of kings, that first of wielder of weapons. Filled with rage like the destroyer himself, Pandya at the time was slaughtering the army of Karna. That force, swelling with cars and steeds and teeming with foremost of foot soldiers, struck by Pandya, began to turn round like the potter's wheel. Like the wind dispersing a mass of congregated clouds, Pandya, with his well-shot arrows, began to disperse that force, destroying its steeds and drivers and standards and cars and causing its weapons and elephants to fall down. Like the splitter of mountains striking down mountains with his thunder, Pandya overthrew elephants with their riders, having previously cut down the standards and banners and weapons with which they were armed, as also the foot soldiers that protected those beasts. And he cut down horses and horsemen with their darts and lances and quivers, mangling with his shafts the Pulindas, the Karsas, the Balakas, the Nishadas, the Andakas, the Tanganas, the Southerners, and the Bhajas, all of whom, endued with great courage, were unyielding and obstinate in battle, and divesting them of their weapons and coats of mail, Pandya deprived them of their lives. Beholding Pandya destroying with his shafts in battle that host consisting of 4 kinds of forces, the son of Drona fearlessly proceeded towards that fearless warrior, fearlessly addressing in sweet words that warrior who then seemed to dance on his car, Drona's son, that foremost of smiters, smiling the while, summoned him and said, O king, O thou with eyes like the petals of the lotus, thy birth is noble and learning great. Of celebrated might and prowess, thou resemblest Indra himself. Stretching with thy 2 massive arms the bow held by thee and whose large string is attached to thy grasp, thou lookest beautiful like a mass of congregated clouds as thou pourest over thy foes thick showers of impetuous shafts. I do not see anybody save myself that can be a match for thee in battle. Alone thou crushest numerous cars and elephants and foot soldiers and steeds, like the fearless lion of terrible might crushing herds of deer in the forest. Making the welkin and the earth resound with the loud clatter of thy car wheels thou lookest resplendent, O king, like a crop-destroying autumnal cloud of loud roars. Taking out of thy quiver and shooting thy keen shafts resembling snakes of virulent poison fight with myself only, like the Asura, and darker fighting with the 3-eyed deity. Thus addressed, Pandya answered, So be it. Then Drona's son, telling him strike, assailed him with vigour. In return, Malayadwa pierced the son of Drona with a barbed arrow. Then Drona's son, that best of preceptors, smiling the while, struck Pandya with some fierce arrows, capable of penetrating into the very vitals and resembling flames of fire. Then Ashvatthama once more sped at his foe some other large arrows equipped with keen points and capable of piercing the very vitals, causing them to course through the welkin with the 10 different kinds of motion. Pandya, however, with 9 shafts of his cut off all those arrows of his antagonist. With 4 other shafts he afflicted the 4 steeds of his foe, at which they speedily expired. Having then, with his sharp shafts, cut off the arrows of Drona's son, Pandya then cut off the stretched bowstring of Ashvatthama, endued with the splendour of the sun. Then Drona's son, that slayer of foes, stringing his unstringed bow, and seeing that his men had meanwhile speedily yoked other excellent steeds unto his car, sped thousands of arrows at his foe. By this, that regenerate one filled the entire welkin and the 10 points of the compass with his arrows. Although knowing that those shafts of the high-souled son of Drona employed in shooting were really inexhaustible, yet Pandya, that bull among men, cut them all into pieces. The antagonist of Ashvatthama, carefully cutting off all those shafts shot by the latter, then slew with his own keen shafts the 2 protectors of the latter's car-wheels in that encounter. Beholding the lightness of hand displayed by his foe, Drona's son, drawing his bow to a circle, began to shoot his arrows like a mass of clouds pouring torrents of rain. During that space of time, O sire, which consisted only of the 8th part of a day, the son of Drona shot as many arrows as were carried on 8 carts each drawn by 8 bullocks. Almost all those men that then beheld Ashvatthama, who at the time looked like the destroyer himself, filled with rage, or rather the destroyer of the destroyer, lost their senses. Like a mass of clouds at the close of summer drenching with torrents of rain, the earth with her mountains and trees, the preceptor's son poured on that hostile force his arrowy shower. Baffling with the Vaivya weapon that unbearable shower of arrows shot by the Ashvatthama cloud, the Pandya wind, filled with joy, uttered loud roars. Then Drona's son, cutting off the standard, smeared with sandal paste and other perfumed unguents, and bearing the device of the Mala mountain on it, of the roaring Pandya, slew the 4 steeds of the latter, slaying then his foe's driver with a single shaft, and cutting off with a crescent-shaped arrow the bow also of that warrior whose twang resembled the roar of the clouds. Ashvatthama cut off his enemy's car into minute fragments, checking with the weapons those of his enemy, and cutting off all the weapons of the latter, Drona's son, although he obtained the opportunity to do his enemy the crowning evil, still slew him not, from desire of battling with him for some time more. Meanwhile Karna rushed against the large elephant force of the Pandavas and began to rout and destroy it. Depriving car warriors of their cars, he struck elephants and steeds and human warriors, O Bharata, with innumerable straight shafts. That mighty bowman, the son of Drona, although he had made Pandya, that slayer of foes and foremost of car warriors, callous, yet he did not slay him from desire of fight. At that time a huge riderless elephant with large tusks, well equipped with all utensils of war, dreading with speed, endued with great might, quick to proceed against any enemy, struck with Ashvatthama's shafts, advanced towards the direction of Pandya with great impetuosity, roaring against a hostile compeer. Beholding that prince of elephants, looking like a cloven mountain summit, Pandya, who was well acquainted with the method of fighting from the neck of an elephant, quickly ascended that beast like a lion springing with a loud roar to the top of a mountain summit. Then that lord of the prince of mountains, striking the elephant with a hook, and inspired with rage, and with that cool care for which he was distinguished in hurling weapons with great force, quickly sped a lance, bright as Surya's rays, at the preceptor's son and uttered a loud shout, repeatedly shouting in joy, "Thou art slain! Thou art slain!" Pandya, with that lance, crushed to pieces the diadem of Drona's son adorned with foremost of jewels and diamonds of the first water and the very best kind of gold and excellent cloth and strings of pearls. That diadem possessed of the splendor of the sun, the moon, the planets, or the fire, in consequence of the violence of the stroke, fell down, split into fragments, like a mountain summit riven by Indra's thunder, falling down on the earth with great noise. At this, Ashvatthama blazed up with exceeding rage like a prince of snakes struck with the foot, and took up 4 and 10 shafts capable of inflicting great pain upon foes and each resembling the destroyer's rod. With 5 of those shafts he cut off the 4 feet and the trunk of his adversary's elephant, and with 3 the 2 arms and the head of the king, and with 6 he slew the 6 mighty Ka warriors, endued with great effulgence, that followed King Pandu. Those long and well-rounded arms of the king, smeared with excellent sandal paste, and adorned with golden pearls and gems and diamonds falling upon the earth, began to writhe like a couple of snakes slain by Garuda. That head also, graced with a face bright as the full moon, having a prominent nose and a pair of large eyes, red as copper with rage, adorned with earrings, falling on the ground, looked resplendent like the moon himself between 2 bright constellations. The elephant, thus cut off by that skilful warrior into 6 pieces with those 5 shafts, and the king into 4 pieces with those 3 shafts, lay divided in all into 10 pieces that looked like the sacrificial butter distributed into 10 portions intended for the 10 deities. Having cut off numerous steeds and men and elephants into pieces and offered them as food into the Rakshasas, King Bandur was thus quieted by Drona's son with his shafts like a blazing fire in a crematorium, extinguished with water after it has received a libation in the shape of a lifeless body. Then, like the chief of the celestials joyfully worshipping Vishnu after the subjugation of the Azura Valley, thy son, the king, accompanied by his brothers approaching the preceptor's son, worshipped with great respect that warrior who is a complete master of the science of arms, after indeed he had completed the task he had undertaken. 21. Dhritarashtra said, when Bandur had been slain and when that foremost of heroes, viz. Karna, was employed in routing and destroying the foe, what, O Sanjaya, did Arjuna do in battle? That son of Bandu is a hero, endued with great might, attentive to his duties, and a complete master of the science of arms. The high Sankara himself hath made him invincible among all creatures. My greatest fears proceed from that Dhananjaya, that slayer of foes. Tell me, O Sanjaya, all that Parthu achieved there on that occasion. Sanjaya said, after Bandur's fall, Krishna quickly said unto Arjuna these beneficial words, I do not behold the king. The other Pandavas also have retreated. If the Parthas had returned, the vast force of the enemy would have been broken. In fulfillment of purposes entertained by Ashvatthama, Karna is slaying the Srinjayas. A great carnage has been made, by that warrior, of steeds and car warriors and elephants. Thus the heroic Vasudeva represented everything unto the diadem decked Arjuna. Hearing of and beholding that great danger of his brother, Yudhishthira, Partha quickly addressed Krishna, saying, urge the steeds, O Hrishikesh. Then Hrishikesh proceeded on that irresistible car. The encounter then that once more took place became exceedingly fierce. The Kurus and the Pandavas once more fearlessly closed with each other, that is, the Parthas headed by Bhimasena and ourselves headed by the Suta's son. Then, O best of kings, there once more commenced a battle between Karna and the Pandavas that swelled the population of Yama's kingdom. With bows and arrows and spiked clubs and swords and lances and axes and short clubs and bashundis and darts and rapiers and battle axes and maces and spears and polished hunters and short shafts and hooks, the combatants quickly fell upon one another, desirous of taking one another's life. Filling the welkin, the cardinal points of the compass, the subsidiary ones, the firmament, and the earth, with the whiz of arrows, the twang of bowstrings, the sound of palms, and the clatter of car wheels, foes rushed upon foes. Gladdened by that loud noise, heroes fought with heroes desirous of reaching the end of the hostilities. Loud became the noise caused by the sound of bowstrings and fences and bows, the grunt of elephants, and the shouts of foot soldiers and falling men. Hearing the terrible whiz of arrows and the diverse shouts of brave warriors, the troops took fright, became pale, and fell down. Large numbers of those foes thus employed in shouting and shooting weapons, the heroic son of Idrata crushed with his arrows, With his shafts Kana then dispatched to Yama's abode 20 warriors among the brave Pantla heroes, with their steeds, drivers, and standards. Then many foremost of warriors of the Pandava army, endued with great energy and quick in the use of weapons, speedily wheeling round, encompassed Kana on all sides. Kana agitated that hostile force with showers of weapons like the leader of an elephantine herd plunging into a lake adorned with lotuses and covered with swans. Penetrating into the midst of his foes, the son of Radha, shaking his best of bows, began to strike off and fell their heads with his sharp shafts. The shield and coats of mail of the warriors, cut off, fell down on the earth. There was none amongst them that needed the touch of a second arrow of Kana's. Like a driver striking the steeds with a whip, Kana, with his shafts capable of crushing coats of mail and bodies and the life that quickened them, struck the fences of his foes, perceivable only by their bowstrings. Like a lion grinding herds of deer, Kana speedily grinded all those bandas and syringias and bantlers that came within range of his arrows. Then the chief of the Pankalas, and the sons of Draupadi, O sire, and the twins, and Ayudhana, uniting together, proceeded against Kana. When those Kuras, and Pankalas and Pandas were thus engaged in battle, the other warriors, reckless of their very lives, began to strike at one another well cased in armor and coats of mail and adorned with headgears. Combatants endued with great strength rushed at their foes, with maces and short clubs and spiked bludgeons looking like uplifted rods of the destroyer, and jumping, O sire, and challenging one another, uttered loud shouts. They struck one another, and fell down, assailed by one another with blood raising from their limbs and deprived of brains and eyes and weapons. Covered with weapons, some, as they lay there with faces beautiful as pomegranates, having teeth-adorned mouths filled with blood, seemed to be alive. Others, in that vast ocean of battle, filled with rage mangled or cut or pierced or overthrew or lopped off or slew one another with battle-axes and short arrows and hooks and spears and lances. Slain by one another they fell down, covered with blood and deprived of life like sandal trees cut down with the axe, falling down and shedding as they fall their cool blood-red juice. Cars destroyed by cars, elephants by elephants, men by men, and steeds by steeds, fell down in thousands. Standards, and heads, and umbrellas, and elephants, trunks, and human arms, cut off with razor-faced or broad-headed or crescent-shaped arrows, fell down on the earth. Large numbers also of men, and elephants, and cars with steed yoked thereto, were crushed in that battle. Many brave warriors, slain by horsemen, fell down, and many tuskers, with their trunks cut off, and banners and standards, on their bodies, fell down like fallen mountains. Assailed by foot soldiers, many elephants and cars, destroyed or in course of destruction, fell down on all sides. Horsemen, encountering foot soldiers with activity, were slain by the latter. Similarly crowds of foot soldiers, slain by horsemen, laid themselves down on the field. The faces and the limbs of those slain in the dreadful battle looked like crushed lotuses and faded floral wreaths. The beautiful forms of elephants and steeds and human beings, O king, then resembled cloths foul with dirt, and became exceedingly repulsive to look at. 22. Sanjaya said, many elephant warriors riding on their beasts, urged by thy son, proceeded against Drishthadhyumna, filled with rage and desirous of compassing his destruction. Many foremost of combatants skilled in elephant fight, belonging to the Easterners, the Southerners, the Angas, the Vangas, the Pandras, the Magdas, the Tamraliptikas, the Meklas, the Koshalas, the Madras, the Dashanas, the Nishadas uniting with the Kalingas, O Bharata, and showering shafts and lances and arrows like pouring clouds, drenched the Bankala force there within that battle. Prishata's son covered with his arrows and shafts those, foe-crushing, elephants surged forward by their riders with heels and toes and hooks. Each of those beasts that were huge as hills, the Bankala hero pierced with 10, 8, or 6 sweated shafts, O Bharata. Beholding the prince of the Pankalas shrouded by those elephants like the sun by the clouds, the Bandus and the Bankalas proceeded towards him for his rescue, uttering loud roars and armed with sharp weapons. Pouring their weapons upon those elephants, those warriors began to dance the dance of heroes, aided by the music of their bowstrings and the sound of their palms, and urged by heroes beating the time. Then Nakula and Sahadeva, and the sons of Draupadi, and the Prabhadrakas, and Satyaki, and Shikhandi, and Chekadana, endued with great energy, all those heroes, drenched those elephants from every side with their weapons, like the clouds drenching the hills with their showers. Those furious elephants, urged on by Mlecha warriors dragging down with their trunks men and steeds and cars, crushed them with their feet. And some they pierced with the points of their tusks, and some they raised aloft and dashed down on the ground, others taken aloft on the tusks of those huge beasts, fell down inspiring spectators with fear. Then Satyaki, piercing the vitals of the elephant belonging to the king of the Vangas staying before him, with a long shaft endued with great impetuosity, caused it to fall down on the field of battle. Then Satyaki pierced with another long shaft the chest of the rider whom he could not hitherto touch, just as the latter was about to jump from the back of his beast. Thus struck by Satwata, he fell down on the earth. Meanwhile Sahadeva, with 3 shafts shot with great care, struck the elephant of Pundra, as it advanced against him like a moving mountain, depriving it of its standard and driver and armor and life. Having thus cut off that elephant, Sahadeva proceeded against the chief of the Angas. Nakula, however, causing Sahadeva to desist, himself afflicted the ruler of the Angas with 3 long shafts, each resembling the rod of Yama, and his foe's elephant with 100 arrows. Then the ruler of the Angas hurled at Nakula 800 lances, bright as the rays of the sun. Each of these Nakula cut off into 3 fragments. The son of Pandu then cut off the head of his antagonist with a crescent-shaped arrow. At this that Mlecha king, deprived of life, fell down with the animal he rode. Upon the fall of the prince of the Angas, who was well skilled in elephant lore, the elephant men of the Angas, filled with rage, proceeded with speed against Nakula, on their elephants decked with banners that waved in the air, possessing excellent mouths, adorned with housings of gold, and looking like blazing mountains, from desire of crushing him to pieces. And many Mekalas and Utklas, and Kalingas, and Nishadas, and Tamraliptikas, also advanced against Nakula, showering their shafts and lances, desirous of slaying him. Then the Pandas, the Pankalas, and the Somakas, filled with rage, rushed with speed for the rescue of Nakula, shrouded by those warriors like the sun by the clouds. Then occurred a fierce battle between those Ka warriors and elephant men, the former showering their arrows and shafts, the latter their lances by thousands. The frontal globes and other limbs and the tusks and adornments of the elephants, exceedingly pierced with shafts, were split and mangled. Then Sahadeva, with 64 impetuous arrows, quickly slew 8 of those huge elephants which fell down with their riders. And Nakula also, that delighter of his race, bending his excellent bow with great vigour, with many straight shafts, slew many elephants. Then the Bankala prince, and the grandson of Sani, Satyaki, and the sons of Draupadi and the Prabhadrakas, and Shikhandi, drenched those huge elephants with showers of shafts. Then, in consequence of those rain-charged clouds constituted by the Pandava warriors, those hills constituted by the elephants of the foe, fell, struck down by torrents of rain formed by their numerous shafts, like real mountains struck down with a thunderstorm. Those leaders of the Bandavaka warriors then, thus slaying those elephants of thine, cast their eyes on the hostile army, which, as it fled away at the time, resembled a river whose continents had been washed away. Those warriors of Bandu's son, having thus agitated that army of thine, agitated it once more, and then rushed against Karna. 23. Sanjaya said, while Sahadeva, filled with rage, was thus blasting thy host, Dushasana, O great king, proceeded against him, the brother against the brother. Beholding those two engaged in dreadful combat, all the great Ka warriors uttered leonine shouts and waved their garments. Then, O Bharata, the mighty son of Pandu, was struck in the chest with 3 arrows by thy angry son armed with bow. Then Sahadeva, O king, having first pierced thy son with an arrow, pierced him again with 70 arrows, and then his driver with 3. Then Dushasana, O monarch, having cut off Sahadeva's bow in that great battle, pierced Sahadeva himself with 73 arrows in the arms and the chest. Then Sahadeva, filled with rage, shook up a sword in that dreadful conflict, and whirling, hurled it quickly towards the car of thy son. Cutting off Dushasana's bow with string and arrow fixed on it, that large sword fell down on the earth like a snake from the firmament. Then the valiant Sahadeva, taking up another bow, shot a deadly shaft at Dushasana. The Kuru warrior, however, with his keen-edged sword, cut off into 2 fragments that shaft, bright as the rod of death, as it coursed towards him. Then whirling that sharp sword, Dushasana quickly hurled it in that battle at his foe. Meanwhile that valiant warrior took up another bow with a shaft. Sahadeva, however, with the greatest ease, cut off, with his keen shafts, that sword as it coursed towards him, and caused it to fall down in that battle. Then, O Bharata, thy son, in that dreadful battle, quickly sped 64 shafts at the car of Sahadeva. Sahadeva, however, O king, cut off every one of those numerous arrows as they coursed with great impetuosity towards him, with 5 shafts of his. Checking then those mighty shafts sped by thy son, Sahadeva, in that battle, sped a large number of arrows at his foe. Cutting off each of those shafts with 3 shafts of his, thy son uttered a loud shout, making the whole earth resound with it. Then Dushasana, O king, having pierced Sahadeva in that battle, struck the latter's driver with 9 arrows. The valiant Sahadeva then, O monarch, filled with rage, fixed on his bowstring a terrible shaft resembling the destroyer himself, and forcibly drawing the bow, he sped that shaft at thy son. Piercing with great speed through his strong armor and body, that shaft entered the earth, O king, like a snake penetrating into an ant-hill. Then thy son, that great Ka warrior, swooned away, O king. Beholding him deprived of his senses, his driver quickly took away the car, himself forcibly struck all the while with keen arrows. Having vanquished the Kuru warrior thus, the son of Pandu, beholding Duryodhana's division, began to crush it on all sides. Indeed, O king, as a man excited with wrath crushes swarm of ants, even so, O Bharata, did that son of Pandu begin to crush the Kaurava host. 24. Sanjaya said, while Nakula was employed in destroying and routing the Kaurava divisions in battle with great force, Vikatana's son Karna, filled with rage, checked him, O king. Then Nakula, smiling the while, addressed Karna, and said, after a long time, through the favour of the gods, I am seen by thee, and thou also, O wretch, dost become the object of my sight. Thou art the root of all these evils, this hostility, this quarrel. It is through thy faults that the Kauravas are being thinned, encountering one another. Slaying thee in battle today, I will regard myself as one that has achieved his object, and the fever of my heart will be dispelled. Thus addressed by Nakula, the suitor's son said unto him the following words befitting a prince and a bowman in particular: Strike me, O hero. We desire to witness thy manliness. Having achieved some feats in battle, O brave warrior, thou shouldst then boast. O sire, they that are heroes fight in battle to the best of their powers, without indulging in brag. Fight now with me to the best of thy might. I will quell thy pride. Having said these words, the suitor's son quickly struck the son of Bandu and pierced him, in that encounter, with 73 shafts. Then Nakula, O Bharata, thus pierced by the suitor's son, pierced the latter in return with 80 shafts resembling snakes of virulent poison. Then Karna, that great bowman, cutting off his antagonist's bow with a number of arrows winged with gold and whetted on stone, afflicted him with 30 arrows. Those arrows, piercing through his armor, drank his blood in that battle, like the nagas of virulent poison drinking water after having pierced through the earth. Then Nakula, taking up another formidable bow whose back was decked with gold, pierced Karna with 20 arrows and his driver with 3. Then, O monarch, that slayer of hostile heroes, viz., Nakula, filled with rage, cut off Karna's bow with a razor-headed shaft of great keenness. Smiling the while, the heroic son of Bandu then struck the bowless Karna, that foremost of Ka warriors, with 300 arrows. Beholding Karna thus afflicted, O sire, by the son of Bandu, all the Ka warriors there, with the gods, in the welkin, were filled with great wonder. Then Vikatana's son Karna, taking up another bow, struck Nakula with 5 arrows in the shoulder joint. With those arrows sticking to him here, the son of Madri looked resplendent like the sun with his own rays while shedding his light on the earth. Then Nakula, piercing Karna with 7 shafts, once more, O sire, cut off one of the horns of Karna's bow. Then Karna, taking up in that battle a tougher bow, filled the welkin on every side of Nakula with his arrows. The mighty Ka warrior, Nakula, however, thus suddenly shrouded with the arrows shot from Karna's bow, quickly cut off all those shafts with shafts of his own. Then was seen overspread in the welkin a vast number of arrows, like to the spectacle presented by the sky when it is filled with myriads of roving fireflies. Indeed, the sky shrouded with those hundreds of arrows shot by both the warriors, looked, O monarch, as if it was covered with flights of locusts. Those arrows, decked with gold, issuing repeatedly in continuous lines, looked beautiful like rows of cranes while flying through the welkin. When the sky was thus covered with showers of arrows and the sun himself hid from the view, no creature ranging the air could descend on the earth. When all sides were thus covered with showers of arrows, those 2 high-souled warriors looked resplendent like 2 suns risen at the end of the Yuga. Slaughtered with the shafts issuing from Karna's bow, the Somakas, O monarch, greatly afflicted and feeling much pain, began to breathe their last. Similarly, thy warriors, struck with the shafts of Nakula, dispersed on all sides, O king, like clouds tossed by the wind. The 2 armies thus slaughtered by those 2 warriors with their mighty celestial shafts, retreated from the range of those arrows and stood as spectators of the encounter. When both the armies were driven off by means of the shafts of Karna and Nakula, those 2 high-souled warriors began to pierce each other with showers of shafts. Displaying their celestial weapons on the field of battle, they quickly shrouded each other, each desirous of compassing the destruction of the other. The shafts shot by Nakula, dressed with canker and peacock feathers, shrouding the suitor's son, seemed to stay in the welkin. Similarly, the shafts sped by the suitor's son in that dreadful battle, shrouding the son of Pandu, seemed to stay in the welkin. Shrouded within narrowy chambers, both their warriors became invisible, like the sun and the moon, O king, hidden by the clouds. Then Kana, filled with rage and assuming a terrible aspect in the battle, covered the son of Bandu with showers of arrows from every side. Completely covered, O monarch, by the Suta's son, the son of Bandu felt no pain like the maker of day when covered by the clouds. The son of Adrata then, smiling the while, sped arrowy lines, O sire, in hundreds and thousands, in that battle. With those shafts of the high Sultana, an extensive shade seemed to rest on the field of battle. Indeed, with those excellent shafts constantly issuing out of his bow, a shade was caused like that formed by the clouds. Then Kana, O monarch, cutting off the bow of the high Sultanakala, felled the latter's driver from the Corniche with the greatest ease. With 4 keen shafts, next, he quickly dispatched the 4 steeds of Nakala, O Bharata, to the abode of the armour. With his shafts, he also cut off into minute fragments that excellent car of his antagonist, as also his standard and the protectors of his car wheels, and mace, and sword, and shield decked with 100 moons, and other utensils and equipments of battle. Then Nakala, steedless and carless and armourless, O monarch, quickly alighting from his car, stood, armed with a spiked bludgeon. Even the terrible bludgeon, so uplifted by the son of Pandu, the Suta's son, O king, cut off with many keen arrows capable of bearing a great strain. Beholding his adversary weaponless, Kana began to strike him with many straight shafts, but took care not to afflict him greatly. Thus struck in that battle by that mighty warrior accomplished in weapons, Nakala, O king, fled away precipitately in great affliction. Laughing repeatedly, the son of Radha pursued him and placed his stringed bow, O Bharata, around the neck of the retreating Nakala. With a large bow around his neck, O king, the son of Pandu looked resplendent like moon in the firmament when within a circular halo of light, or a white cloud girdled round by Indra's bow. Then Kana, addressing him, said, The words thou hadst uttered were futile. Canst thou utter them now once more in joy, repeatedly struck as thou art by me? Do not, O son of Pandu, fight again with those amongst the Kuras that are possessed of greater might. O child, fight with them that are thy equals. Do not, O son of Pandu, feel any shame for it. Return home, O son of Madri, or go thither where Krishna and Falguna are. Having addressed him thus, he abandoned him then. Acquainted with morality as the brave Kana was, he did not then slay Nakala, who was already within the jaws of death. Recollecting the words of Kunti, O king, Kana let Nakala go. The son of Pandu, thus let off, O king, by that bowman, Suta's son, proceeded towards Yudhishthira's car in great shame. Scorched by the Suta's son, he then ascended his brother's car, and burning with grief he continued to sigh like a snake kept within a jar. Meanwhile Kana, having vanquished Nakala, quickly proceeded against the Panchalas, riding on that car of his which bore many gorgeous pennons and whose steeds were as white as the moon. There, O monarch, a great uproar arose among the Pandavas when they saw the leader of the Kaurava army proceeding towards the Panchala car throngs. The Suta's son, O monarch, made a great massacre there at that hour when the sun had reached the meridian, that puissant warrior careering all the while with the activity of a wheel. We beheld many Panchala warriors borne away from the battle on their steedless and driverless cars with broken wheels and broken axles, and with standards and pennons also that were broken and torn, O sire. And many elephants were seen to wander there in all directions, with limbs scorched by arrows, like individuals of their species in the wide forest with limbs scorched and burned in a forest conflagration. Others with their frontal globes split open, or bathed in blood, or with trunks lopped off, or with their armor cut down, or their tails lopped off, fell down, struck by the high Sultana, like straggling clouds. Other elephants, frightened by the shafts and lances of Radha's son, proceeded against Radha's son himself like insects towards a blazing fire. Other huge elephants were seen striking against one another and shedding blood from various limbs like mountains, with rivulets running down their breasts. Steeds of the foremost breed, divested of breastplates and their ornaments of silver and brass and gold, destitute of trappings and bridle bits and yak tails and saddle cloths, with quivers fallen off from their backs, and with the heroic riders' ornaments of battle, slain, were seen wandering here and there on the field, pierced and cut with lances and scimitars and swords. O Bharata, we beheld many a horseman adorned with armour and headgear, slain or in course of being slain or trembling with fear, and deprived, O Bharata, of diverse limbs. Cars also, decked with gold, and unto which were yoked steeds of great fleetness, were seen by us dragged with exceeding speed hither and thither, their riders having been slain. Some of these had their axles and poles broken, and some, O Bharata, had their wheels broken, and some were without banners and standards, and some were divested of their shafts. Many car warriors also were seen there, by us, O monarch, wandering all around, deprived of their cars and scorched with the shafts of the Suta's son. And some destitute of weapons, and some with weapons still in their arms, were seen lying lifeless on the field in large numbers. And many elephants also were seen by us, wandering in all directions, studded with clusters of stars, adorned with rows of beautiful bells, and decked with variegated banners of diverse hues. Heads and arms and chests and other limbs, cut off with shafts sped from Karna's bow, were beheld by us lying around. A great and fierce calamity overtook the warriors of the Pandava army, as they fought with whetted arrows, and mangled as they were with the shafts of Karna. The Srinjayas, slaughtered in that battle by the Suta's son, blindly proceeded against the latter's self-like insects rushing upon a blazing fire. Indeed, as that mighty Car warrior was engaged in scorching the Pandava divisions, the Kshatriyas avoided him, regarding him to be the blazing Yuga fire. Those heroic and mighty Car warriors of the Panchala that survived the slaughter fled away. The brave Karna, however, pursued those broken and retreating warriors from behind, shooting his shafts at them. Endued with great energy, he pursues those combatants divested of armor and destitute of standards. Indeed, the Suta's son, possessed of great might, continued to scorch them with his shafts, like the dispeller of darkness scorching all creatures when he attains to the meridian. 25. Sanjaya said, against Duitsa, who was employed in routing the vast army of thy son, Aluka proceeded with speed, saying, Wait, wait. Then Duitsa, O king, with a winged arrow of keen edge struck Aluka with great force, like Indra himself striking a mountain with a thunderbolt. Filled with rage at this, Aluka, in that battle, cut off thy son's bow with a razor-headed arrow, and struck thy son himself with a barbed shaft. Casting off that broken bow, Duitsa, with eyes red in wrath, shook up another formidable bow endued with greater impetus. The prince then, O bull of Bharata's race, pierced Aluka with 60 arrows. Piercing next the driver of Aluka, Duitsa struck Aluka once more. Then Aluka, filled with rage, pierced Duitsa with 20 shafts adorned with gold, and then cut off his standard made of gold. That lofty and gorgeous standard made of gold, O king, thus cut off by Aluka, fell down in front of Duitsa's car. Beholding his standard cut off, Duitsa, deprived of his senses by wrath, struck Aluka with 5 shafts in the center of the chest. Then Aluka, O sire, in that battle, cut off, with a board-headed arrow steeped in oil, the head of his antagonist's driver, O best of the Bharatas. Slaying next his 4 steeds, he struck Duitsa himself with 5 arrows. Deeply struck by the strong Aluka, Uetsu proceeded to another car. Having vanquished him in battle, O king, Aluka proceeded quickly towards the Pankalas and the Seringias and began to slaughter them with sharp shafts. Thy sons route to Carmen, O monarch, within half the time taken up by a wink of the eye, fearlessly made Satnika steedless and driverless and callous. The mighty car warrior Satnika, however, staying on his steedless car, O sire, hurled a mace, filled with rage, at thy son. That mace, reducing thy son's car with its steeds and driver into fragments, fell down upon the earth with great speed, and pierced it through. Then those two heroes, both enhancers of the glory of the chorus, deprived of their cars, retreated from the encounter, glaring at each other. Then thy son, overcome with fear, mounted upon the car of Ivingsu, while Satanika quickly got upon the car of Prativandaya. Shakuni, filled with rage, pierced Sutasoma with many keen shafts, but failed to make the latter tremble like a torrent of water, failing to produce any impression upon a mountain. Beholding that great enemy of his father, Sutasoma covered Shakuni, O Bharata, with many thousands of arrows. Shakuni, however, that warrior of sure aim and conversant with all methods of warfare, actuated by desire of battle, quickly cut off all those shafts with his own winged arrows. Having checked those shafts with his own keen arrows in battle, Shakuni, filled with rage, struck Sutasoma with 3 arrows. Thy brother-in-law then, O monarch, with his arrows cut off into minute fragments the steeds, the standard, and the driver of his adversary, at which all the spectators uttered a loud shout. Deprived of his steed and car, and having his standard cut off, O sire, the great bowman, Sutasoma, jumping down from his car, stood on the earth, having taken up a good bow. And he shot a large number of arrows equipped with golden wings and whetted on stone, and shrouded therewith the car of thy brother-in-law in that battle. The son of Sabala, however, beholding those showers of arrows that resembled a flight of locusts, coming towards his car, did not tremble. On the other hand, that illustrious warrior crushed all those arrows with arrows of his own. Their warriors that were present there, as also the sitters in the firmament, were highly pleased at sight of that wonderful and incredible feat of Sutasoma, inasmuch as he contended on foot with Shakuni staying in his car. Then Shakuni, with a number of broad-headed shafts of great impetuosity, keen and perfectly straight, cut off, O king, the bow of Sutasoma as also all his quivers. Bolus, and Carlos, Sutasoma then, uplifting a scimitar of the hue of the blue lotus and equipped with an ivory handle, uttered a loud shout. That scimitar of the intelligent Sutasoma of the hue of the clear sky, as it was whirled by that hero, was regarded by Shakuni to be as fatal as the rod of death. Armed with that scimitar, he suddenly began to career in circles over the arena, displaying, O monarch, the 14 different kinds of maneuvers, endued as he was with skill and might. Indeed, he displayed in that battle all those motions such as wheeling about and whirling on high, and making side thrusts and jumping forward and leaping on high and running above and rushing forward and rushing upwards. The valiant son of Sabala then sped a number of arrows at his foe, but the latter quickly cut them off with that excellent scimitar of his as they coursed towards him. Filled with rage, at this, the son of Sabala, O king, once more sped at Sutasoma a number of shafts that resembled snakes of virulent poison. Aided by his skill and might, Sutasoma cut off even these with his scimitar, displaying his great activity, and possessed as he was of prowess equal to that of Garuda himself. With a razor-headed arrow of great sharpness, Shakuni then, O king, cut off that bright scimitar of his adversary as the latter careered in circles before him. Thus cut off, half of that large scimitar suddenly fell down on the earth, while half of it, O Bharata, continued in the grasp of Sutasoma. Seeing his sword cut off, The mighty Ka warrior Sutasoma retreated 6 steps and then hurled that half of the scimitar, which he had in his grasp, at his foe. The fragment, decked with gold and gems, cutting off the bow with string of the illustrious Shakuni, quickly fell down on the earth. Then Sutasoma went to the great Ka of Sruthakirti, Sabala's son, also, taking up another formidable and invincible bow, proceeded towards the Pandava army, slaying large numbers of foes on the way. Beholding the son of Sabala careering fearlessly in battle, a loud uproar, O king, arose among the Pandavas in that part of the army. People witnessed those large and proud divisions bristling with arms, routed by the illustrious son of Sabala. Even as the chief of the Celestials crushed the Daitya army, the son of Sabala destroyed that army of the Pandavas. 26. Sanjaya said, Kripa, O king, resisted Drishtadama in battle, like a Saraba in the forest resisting a proud lion. Checked by the mighty son of Kotama, Prishata's son, O Bharata, could not advance even 1 step. Beholding Gautama's car in front of Drishtadama's, all creatures were inspired with fright and regarded the latter's destruction to be at hand. Cow warriors and horsemen, becoming very cheerless, said, without doubt, this foremost of men, Sharadvata's son of mighty energy and great intelligence and versed in celestial weapon, is filled with rage at the death of Drona. Will Drishtadama today escape from the hands of Kotama? Will this vast army escape today this great danger? Will not this Brahmana slay all of us together? The form that he has assumed today, even like that of the destroyer himself, shows that he will today act after the manner of Drona himself. The preceptor Gautama, endued with great lightness of hands, is ever victorious in battle. Possessing a knowledge of weapons, he is endued with great energy and filled with rage. Diverse speeches like these, uttered by the warriors of both the armies were, O monarch, heard there as those 2 heroes encountered each other. Drawing deep breath in rage, Sharadvata's son Kripa, O king, began to afflict the son of Prashata in all his vital limbs while the latter stood inactive. Struck in that battle by the illustrious Gautama, Drishtadama, greatly stupefied, knew not what to do. His driver then, addressing him, said, It is not all right with thee, O son of Prashata. Never before have I seen such a calamity overtake thee in battle. It is a lucky chance, it seems, that these shafts, capable of penetrating the very vitals, sped by that foremost of Brahmanas aiming at thy vital limbs, and not striking thee. I will presently cause the car to turn back, like the current of a river dashed back by the sea. I think that Brahmana, by whom thy prowess hath been annihilated, is incapable of being slain by thee. Thus addressed, Drishtadama, O king, slowly said, My mind becometh stupefied, O sire, and perspiration covereth my limbs. My body trembles and my hair stands on end. Avoiding that Brahmana in battle, proceed slowly to where Arjuna is, O charioteer. Arrived at the presence of either Arjuna or Bhimasena, prosperity may be mine. Even this is my certain conviction. Then, O monarch, the charioteer, urging the steeds, proceeded to the spot where the mighty bowman Bhimasena was battling with thy troops. Beholding the car, O sire, of Drishtadama speedily moving away from that spot, Gautama followed it, shooting hundreds of shafts. And that chastiser of foes also repeatedly blew his conch. Indeed, he routed the son of Prishata like Indra routing the Danava Namusi. The invincible Shikandi, the cause of Bhishma's death, was in that battle, resisted by Hridika's son who smiled repeatedly as he fought with the former. Shikandi, however, encountering the mighty Ka warrior of Hridika's, struck him with 5 keen and broad-headed shafts at the shoulder joint. Then the mighty Ka warrior Kritivama, filled with rage, pierced his foe with 60 winged arrows. with a single arrow. Then he cut off his bow, laughing the while. The mighty son of Drupada, filled with wrath, shook up another bow, and addressing the son of Ridica, said, "Wait, wait." Then, O monarch, Shikhandi sped at his foe 90 shafts of great impetuosity, all equipped with golden wings. Those shafts, however, all recoiled from Kritavarma's armor. Seeing those shafts recoil and scattered on the surface of the earth, Shikhandi cut off Kritavarma's bow with a keen razor-headed arrow. Filled with wrath, he struck the bowless son of Ridica, who then resembled a hornless bull, in the arms and the chest, with 80 arrows. Filled with rage but torn and mangled with shafts, Kritavarma vomited blood through his limbs like a jar disgorging the water with which it is filled. Bathed in blood, the boar king looked beautiful like a mountain, O king, streaked with streams of liquefied red chalk after a shower. The puissant Kritavarma then, taking up another bow with a string and an arrow fixed thereon, struck Shikhandi in his shoulder joint. With those shafts sticking to his shoulder joint, Shikhandi looked resplendent like a lordly tree with its spreading branches and twigs. Having pierced each other, the two combatants were bathed in blood, and resembled a couple of bulls that have gored each other with their horns, carefully exerting themselves to slay each other. Those two mighty Ka warriors moved in a 1,000 circles with their respective Kas on that arena. Then Kritavarma, O king, in that encounter, pierced the son of Prishata with 70 shafts, all of which were equipped with wings of gold and whetted on stone. The ruler of the Bidges then, that foremost of smiters, sped with great activity a terrible and fatal shaft at his foe. Struck therewith, Shikhandi quickly swooned away. Overcome with stupefaction, he supported himself by seizing his flag-staff. The driver then of that foremost of Ka warriors speedily bore him away from the fight. Scorched with the shaft of Ridica's son, he drew breath upon breath repeatedly. After the defeat of the heroic son of Drupada, O Lord, the Pandava army, slaughtered on all sides, fled away from the field. 27. Sanjaya said, "The white steeded Arjuna, also, O monarch, rooted by force even as the winds, approaching a heap of cotton, scatters it on all sides. Against him rushed the Trigartas, the Sivis, the Kauravas, the Salwas, the Samsaptakas, and that force which consisted of the Narayanas, and Satyasena and Kandradeva, and Maitradeva and Satranjaya, and Susruta's son, and Sitarasena, and Maitravarman, O Bharata, and the king of the Trigartas, surrounded by his brothers and by his sons that were all mighty bowmen accomplished in diverse weapons, suddenly advanced, shooting and scattering showers of shafts in that battle, against Arjuna, like a fierce current of water towards the ocean. Those warriors, in hundreds of thousands, approaching Arjuna, seemed to melt away like snakes at sight of Garuda. Though slaughtered in battle, they did not still leave the son of Pandu like insects, O monarch, never receding from a blazing fire. Satyasena, in that encounter, pierced that son of Pandu with 3 arrows, and Maitradeva pierced him with 63, and Kandradeva with 7. And Maitravarman pierced him with 73 arrows, and Susruta's son with 7. And Satranjaya pierced him with 20, and Sushama with 9. Thus pierced in that encounter by many, Arjuna pierced all those kings in return. Indeed, piercing the son of Susruta with 7 arrows, he pierced Satyasena with 3, Satranjaya with 20, and Kandradeva with 8, Maitradeva with 100, Srutasena with 3, Maitravarman with 9, and Sushama with 8. Then slaying King Satranjaya with a number of arrows whetted on stone, he smote off from his trunk the head, decked with headgear, of Susruta's son. Without any delay he then, with a number of other shafts, dispatched Kandradeva to the abode of the armor. As regards the other mighty Ka warriors vigorously contending with him, he checked each of them with 5 arrows. Then Satyasena, filled with rage, hurled a formidable lance in that battle, aiming at Krishna, and uttered a leonine roar. That iron-mouthed lance, having a golden shaft, piercing through the left arm of the high-souled Madhava, penetrated into the earth. Madhava, being thus pierced with that lance in great battle, the goad and the reins, O king, fell down from his hands. Beholding Vasudeva's limb pierced through, Pritha's son Dhananjaya mustered all his wrath, and addressing Vasudeva said, O mighty armed one, bear the car to Satyasena, O puissant one, so that I may, with keen shafts, dispatch him to Yama's abode. The illustrious Keshava then, quickly taking up the goad and the reins, caused the steeds to bear the car to the front of Satyasena's vehicle. Beholding the ruler of the universe pierced, Pritha's son Dhananjaya, that mighty car warrior, checking Satyasena with some keen arrows, cut off with a number of broad-headed shafts of great sharpness, the large head of that king decked with earrings, from off his trunk at the head of the army. Having thus cut off Satyasena's head, he then dispatched Citravarman with a number of keen shafts, and then the latter's driver, O sire, with a keen carved-toothed arrow. Filled with rage, the mighty Partha then, with hundreds of shafts, felled the Samsaptakas in hundreds and thousands. Then, O king, with a razor-headed arrow equipped with wings of silver, that mighty Ka warrior cut off the head of the illustrious Maitrasena. Filled with rage, he then struck Sushama in the shoulder joint. Then all the Samsaptakas, filled with wrath, encompassed Dhananjaya on all sides and began to afflict him with showers of weapons and make all the points of the compass resound with their shouts. Afflicted by them thus, the mighty Ka warrior Jishu, of immeasurable soul, endued with prowess resembling that of Sakra himself, invoked the Indra weapon. From that weapon, thousands of shafts, O king, began to issue continually. Then, O king, a loud din was heard of falling cars with standards and quivers and yokes, and axles and wheels and traces with cords, of bottoms of cars and wooden fences around them, of arrows and steeds and spears and swords, and maces and spiked clubs and darts and lances and axes, and satagnis equipped with wheels and arrows, thighs and necklaces and angadas and kiras, O sire, and garlands and cuirasses and coats of mail, O Bharata, and umbrellas and fans and heads decked with diadems lay on the battlefield. Heads adorned with earrings and beautiful eyes, and each resembling the full moon, looked, as they lay on the field, like stars in the firmament. Adorned with sandal paste, beautiful garlands of flowers and excellent robes, many were the bodies of slain warriors that were seen to lie on the ground. The field of battle, terrible as it was, looked like the welkin teeming with vapory forms. With the slain princes and kshatriyas of great might and fallen elephants and steeds, the earth became impassable in that battle as if she was strewn with hills. There was no path on the field for the wheels of the illustrious Pandava's car, engaged as he was in continually slaying his foes and striking down elephants and steeds with his broad-headed shafts. It seemed, O sire, that the wheels of his car stopped in fright at the sight of his own self careering in that battle through that bloody mire. His steeds, however, endued with the speed of the mind or the wind, dragged with great efforts and labour those wheels that had refused to move. Thus slaughtered by Pandu's son armed with the bow, that host fled away almost entirely, without leaving even a remnant, O Bharata, contending with the foe. Having vanquished large numbers of the Samsaptakas in battle, Pritha's son Jishu looked resplendent, like a blazing fire without smoke. 28. Sanjaya said, King Duryodhana, O monarch, himself fearlessly received Yudhishthira, as the latter was engaged in shooting large numbers of shafts. the royal Yudhishthira the just, speedily piercing thy son, that mighty car warrior, as the latter was rushing towards him with impetuosity, addressed him, saying, "Wait, wait." Duryodhana, however, pierced Yudhishthira, in return, with 9 keen arrows, and filled with great wrath, struck Yudhishthira's driver also with a broad-headed shaft. Then King Yudhishthira sped at Duryodhana 3 and 10 arrows equipped with wings of gold and whetted on stone. With 4 shafts that mighty car warrior then slew the 4 steeds of his foe, and with the 5th he cut off from his trunk the head of Duryodhana's driver. With the 6th arrow he felled their Kuru, king's standard on the earth, with the 7th his bow, and with the 8th his scimitar. And then with 5 more shafts King Yudhishthira the just deeply afflicted the Kuru monarch. Thy son, then, alighting from that steedless car, stood on the earth in imminent danger. Beholding him in that situation of great peril, Karna and Drona's son and Gripa and others rushed suddenly towards the spot, desirous of rescuing the king. Then there, other sons of Pandu, surrounding Yudhishthira, all proceeded to the encounter, upon which, O king, a fierce battle was fought. Thousands of trumpets then were blown in that great engagement, and a confused din of myriad voices arose there, O king. There were the Bankalas engaged the Kauravas, in battle, men closed with men, and elephants with foremost of elephants, and car warriors closed with his car warriors, and horse with horse, and the various couples of battling men and animals, of great prowess and armed with diverse kinds of weapons and possessed of great skill, presented a beautiful sight, O king, over the field. All those heroes endued with great impetuosity and desirous of compassing the destruction of one another, fought beautifully and with great activity and skill. Observing their sanctioned practices of warriors, they slew one another in battle. None of them fought from behind others. For only a very short time that battle presented a beautiful aspect. Soon it became an encounter of madmen, in which the combatants showed no regard for one another. The car warrior, approaching the elephant, pierced the latter with keen shafts and dispatched it to Yama's presence by means of straight arrows. Elephants, approaching steeds, dragged down many of them in that battle, and tore them, with their tusks, most fiercely in diverse places. Large numbers of horsemen also, encompassing many foremost of steeds, made a loud noise with their palms, and closed with them. And those horsemen slew those steeds as they ran hither and thither, as also many huge elephants as these wandered over the field, from behind and the flanks. Infuriate elephants, O king, routing large numbers of steeds, slew them with their tusks or crushed them with great force. Some elephants, filled with wrath, pierced with their tusks horses with horsemen. Others, seizing such with great force, hurled them to the ground with violence. Many elephants, struck by foot soldiers availing of the proper opportunities, uttered terrible cries of pain and fled away on all sides. Among the foot soldiers that fled away in that great battle, throwing down their ornaments, there were many that were quickly encompassed on the field. Elephant warriors, riding on huge elephants, understanding indications of victory, wheeled their beasts and causing them to seize those beautiful ornaments, made the beasts to pierce them with their tusks. Other foot soldiers, endued with great impetuosity and fierce might, surrounding those elephant warriors thus engaged in those spots, began to slay them. Others, in that great battle, thrown aloft into the air by elephants with their trunks, were pierced by those trained beasts with the points of their tusks as they fell down. Others, suddenly seized by other elephants, were deprived of life with their tusks. Others, borne away from their own divisions into the midst of others, were, O king, mangled by huge elephants which rolled them repeatedly on the ground. Others, whirled on high like fans, were slain in that battle. Others, hither and thither on the field, that stood full in front of other elephants had their bodies exceedingly pierced and torn. Many elephants were deeply wounded with spears and lances and darts in their cheeks and frontal globes and parts between their tusks. Exceedingly afflicted by fierce car warriors and horsemen stationed on their flanks, many elephants, ripped open, fell down on the earth. In that dreadful battle many horsemen on their steeds, striking foot soldiers with their lances, pinned them down to the earth or crushed them with great force. Some elephants, approaching mail-clad car warriors, O sire, raised them aloft from their vehicles and hurled them down with great force upon the earth in that fierce and awful fight. Some huge elephants slain by means of cloth yard shafts, fell down on the earth like mountain summits riven by thunder. Combatants, encountering combatants, began to strike each other with their fists, or seizing each other by the hair, began to drag and throw down and mangle each other. Others, stretching their arms and throwing down their foes on the earth, placed their feet on their chests and with great activity cut off their heads. Some combatant, O king, struck with his feet some foe that was dead, and some, O king, struck off with his sword the head of a falling foe, and some thrust his weapon into the body of a living foe. A fierce battle took place there, O Mahabharata, in which the combatants struck one another with fists or seized one another's hair or wrestled with one another with bare arms. In many instances, combatants, using diverse kinds of weapons, shook the lives of combatants engaged with others and, therefore, unperceived by them. During the progress of the general engagement, when all the combatants were mangled in battle, hundreds and thousands of headless drunks stood upon the field. Weapons and coats of mail, drenched with gore, looked resplendent, like cloths dyed with gorgeous red. Even thus occurred that fierce battle marked by the awful clash of weapons. Like the mad and roaring current of the Ganga, it seemed to fill the whole universe with its uproar. Afflicted with shafts, their warriors failed to distinguish friends from foes. Solicitous of victory, the kings fought on because they thought that fight they should. The warriors slew both friends and foes, with whom they came in contact. The combatants of both the armies were deprived of reason by the heroes of both the armies assailing them with fury. With broken cars, O monarch, the fallen elephants, and steeds lying on the ground, and men laid low, the earth, miry with gore and flesh, and covered with streams of blood, soon became impassable. Kana slaughtered the Bankalas, Vaidananjaya slaughtered the Trigartas, and Bhimasena, O king, slaughtered the Kuras and all the elephant divisions of the latter. Even thus occurred the destruction of troops of both the Kuras and the Pandavas, both parties having been actuated by the desire of winning great fame, at that hour when the sun had passed the meridian. 29. Dhritarashtra said, I have heard from thee, O Sanjaya, of many poignant and unbearable griefs, as also of the losses sustained by my sons. From what thou hast said unto me, from the manner in which the battle has been fought, it is my certain conviction, O Suta, that the Kauravas are no more. Duryodhana was made carless in that dreadful battle. How did Dharma's son, then, fight, and how did the royal Duryodhana also fight in return? How also occurred that battle which was fought in the afternoon? Tell me all this in detail, for thou art skilled in narration, O Sanjaya. Sanjaya said, when the troops of both armies were engaged in battle, according to their respective divisions, thy son Duryodhana, O king, riding on another car and filled with rage like a snake of virulent poison, beholding King Yudhishthira the Just, quickly addressed his own driver, O Bharata, saying, Proceed, proceed, quickly take me there, O driver, where the royal son of Pandu, clad in mail, shineth under yon umbrella held over his head. Thus urged by the king, the driver, in that battle, quickly urged his royal master's goodly car towards the face of Yudhishthira. At this, Yudhishthira also, filled with rage and looking like an infuriate elephant, urged his own driver saying, "Proceed to where Sir Iodana is." Then those two heroes and brothers and foremost of Ka warriors encountered each other. Both endued with great energy, both filled with wrath, both difficult of defeat in battle, approaching each other. Those two great bowmen began to mangle each other with their arrows in that battle. Then King Duryodhana, in that encounter, O sire, with a board-headed arrow whetted on stone, cut in twain the bow of the virtuous monarch. Filled with rage, Yudhishthira could not brook that insult. Casting aside his broken bow, with eyes red in wrath, Dharma's son took up another bow at the head of his forces, and then cut off Duryodhana's standard and bow. Duryodhana then, taking up another bow, pierced the son of Pandu. Filled with rage, they continued to shoot showers of shafts at each other. Desirous of vanquishing each other, they resembled a pair of angry lions. They struck each other in that battle like a couple of roaring bulls. Those mighty Ka warriors continued to career, expecting to find each other's lapses. Then wounded with shafts sped from bows drawn to their fullest stretch, the two warriors, O king, looked resplendent like flowering kinsukas. They then, O king, repeatedly uttered leonine roars. Those two rulers of men, in that dreadful battle, also made louder sounds with their palms and caused their bows to twang loudly. And they blew their conchs too with great force. And they afflicted each other very much. Then King Yudhishthira, filled with rage, struck thy son in the chest with 3 irresistible shafts endued with force of thunder. Him, however, thy royal son quickly pierced, in return, with 5 keen shafts winged with gold and whetted on stone. Then King Duryodhana, O Bharata, hurled a dart capable of slaying everybody, exceedingly keen, and resembling a large blazing brand. As it advanced, King Yudhishthira the Just, with sharp shafts, speedily cut it off into 3 fragments, and then pierced Duryodhana also with 5 arrows. Equipped with golden staff, and producing a loud whiz, that dart then fell down, and while falling, looked resplendent like a large brand with blazing flames. Beholding the dart baffled, thy son, O monarch, struck Yudhishthira with 9 sharp and keen-pointed arrows. Pierced deeply by his mighty foe, that scorcher of foes quickly took up an arrow for aiming it at Duryodhana. The mighty Yudhishthira then placed that arrow on his bowstring. Filled with rage and possessed of great valor, the son of Bandu then shot it at his foe. That arrow, striking thy son, that mighty Ka warrior, stupefied him and then, passing through his body, entered the earth. Then Duryodhana, filled with wrath, uplifting a mace of great impetuosity, rushed at King Yudhishthira the Just, for ending the hostilities that raged between the Kurus and the Pandus. Beholding him armed with that uplifted mace and resembling Yama himself with his bludgeon, King Yudhishthira the Just hurled at thy son a mighty dart blazing with splendor, endued with great impetuosity, and looking like a large blazing brand. Deeply pierced in the chest by that dart as he stood on his car, the Kuru prince, deeply pained, fell down and swooned away. Then Bhima, recollecting his own vow, addressed Yudhishthira, saying, "This one should not be slain by thee, O king." At this Yudhishthira abstained from giving his foe the finishing blow. At that time Kritavama, quickly advancing, came upon thy royal son then sunk in an ocean of calamity. Bhima then, taking up a mace adorned with gold and flaxen cords, rushed impetuously towards Kritavama in that battle. Thus occurred the battle between thy troops and the foe on that afternoon, O monarch, every one of the combatants being inspired with the desire of victory. 30. Sanjaya said, placing Karna at their van, thy warriors, difficult of defeat in fight, returned and fought with the foe, a battle that resembled that between the gods and the Asuras. Excited by the loud uproar made by elephants and men and cars and steeds and gunks, elephant men and car warriors and foot soldiers and horsemen, in large numbers, filled with wrath advanced against the foe and slew the latter with strokes of diverse kinds of weapons. Elephants and cars, steeds and men, in that dreadful battle were destroyed by brave warriors with sharp battle axes and swords and axes and shafts of diverse kinds, and by means also of their animals, strewn with human heads that were adorned with white teeth and fair faces and beautiful eyes and goodly noses, and graced with beautiful diadems and earrings, and every one of which resembled the lotus, the sun, or the moon. The earth looked exceedingly resplendent. Elephants and men and steeds, by thousands, were slain with hundreds of spiked clubs and short bludgeons and darts and lances and hooks and bazondes and maces. The blood that fell formed a river like currents on the field. In consequence of those car warriors and men and steeds and elephants slain by the foe, and lying with ghastly features and gaping wounds, the field of battle looked like the domains of the king of the dead at the time of universal dissolution. Then, O God among men, thy troops, and those bulls amongst the chorus, viz., thy sons resembling the children of the celestials, with a host of warriors of immeasurable might at their van, all proceeded against Satyaki, that bull of Sine's race. Thereupon that host, teeming with many foremost of men and steeds and cars and elephants, producing an uproar loud as that of the vast deep, and resembling the army of the Asuras or that of the celestials, shone with fierce beauty. Then the son of Surya, resembling the chief of the celestials himself in prowess and like unto the younger brother of Indra, struck that foremost one of Sine's race with shafts whose splendour resembled the rays of the Sunday. That bull of Sine's race also, in that battle, then quickly shrouded that foremost of men, with his car and steeds and driver, with diverse kinds of shafts terrible as the poison of the snake. Then many Ataritas belonging to thy army, accompanied by elephants and cars and foot soldiers, quickly approached that bull among car warriors, viz., Vasusana, when they beheld the latter deeply afflicted with the shafts of that foremost hero of Sine's race. That force, however, vast as the ocean, assailed by force possessed of great quickness, viz., the Pandava warriors headed by the sons of Drupada, fled away from the field. At that time a great carnage occurred of men and cars and steeds and elephants. Then those two foremost of men, viz., Arjuna and Keshava, having said their daily prayer and duly worshipped the Lord Bhava, quickly rushed against thy troops, resolved to slay those foes of theirs. Their foes, that is, the chorus, cast their eyes cheerlessly on that car whose rattle resembled the roar of the clouds and whose banners waved beautifully in the air and which had white steeds yoked unto it and which was coming towards them. Then Arjuna, bending Gandiva and as if dancing on his car, filled the welkin and all the points of the compass, cardinal and subsidiary, with showers of shafts, not leaving the smallest space empty. Like the tempest destroying the clouds, the son of Pandu destroyed with his arrows many cars looking like celestial vehicles, that were well adorned, and equipped with weapons and standards, along with the drivers. Many elephants also, with the men that guided them, adorned with triumphal banners and weapons, and many horsemen with horses, and many foot soldiers also, Arjuna dispatched with his arrows to Yama's abode. Then Duryodhana singly proceeded against that mighty car warrior who was angry and irresistible and resembled a veritable Yama, striking him with his straight shafts. Arjuna, cutting off his adversary's bow and driver and steeds and standard with 7 shafts, next cut off his umbrella with 1 arrow. Obtaining then an opportunity, he sped at Duryodhana an excellent shaft, capable of taking the life of the person struck. Drona's son, however, cut off that shaft into 7 fragments. cutting off then the bow of Drona's son and slaying the 4 steeds of the latter with his arrow. The son of Bandu next cut off the formidable bow of Kripa too. Then cutting off the bow of Hridika's son, he felled the latter's standard and steeds. Then cutting off the bow of Dushasana, he proceeded against the son of Radha. At this, Karna, leaving Satyaki, quickly pierced Arjuna with 3 arrows and Krishna with 20, and Partha again repeatedly. Although many were the arrows that he shot while slaying his foes in that battle, like Indra himself inspired with wrath, Karna yet felt no fatigue. Meanwhile Satyaki, coming up, pierced Karna with 99 fierce arrows, and once more with 100. Then all the foremost heroes among the Pathas began to afflict Karna. Yadamanyu and Shikhandi and the sons of Draupadi and the Prabhadrakas, and Uttamura and Uitsu and the twins and Drishthadama, and the divisions of the Siddhis and the Kaurushas and the Matsyas and Kakiyas, and the mighty Chekatana, and King Yudhishthira of excellent vows, all these, accompanied by cars and steeds and elephants, and foot soldiers of fierce prowess, encompassed Karna on all sides in that battle, and showered upon him diverse kinds of weapons, addressing him in harsh words and resolved to compass his destruction. Cutting off that shower of weapons with his sharp shafts, Karna dispersed his assailants by the power of his weapons like the wind breaking down the trees that stand on its way. Filled with wrath, Karna was seen to destroy car warriors, and elephants with their riders, and horses with horsemen, and large bands of foot soldiers. Slaughtered by the energy of Karna's weapons, almost the whole of that force of the Pandavas, deprived of weapons, and with limbs mangled and torn, retired from the field. Then Arjuna, smiling the while, baffled with his own weapons the weapons of Karna, uncovered the welkin, the earth, and all the points of the compass with dense shower of arrows. The shafts of Arjuna fell like heavy clubs and spiked bludgeons, and some amongst them fell like Satagnis, and some fell like fierce thunderbolts. Slaughtered therewith the core of a force consisting of infantry and horse and cars and elephants, shutting its eyes, uttered loud wails of woe and wandered senselessly. Many were the steeds and men and elephants that buried